Coming to you live from the offices of Chapter One Films in Charlotte, North Carolina, this is the 4D Podcast with your hosts, Nathanael Levinson, Greg Prinz, and Liam Maxwell. A new dimension in entertainment. This is the 4D Podcast.
What are we, Liam?
We're back.
Are we all
in
back,
a new
though?
year?
We are in a new year.
It's a new year. Happy 2025, Greg.
Hey, happy 2025 to you.
Go Vikings. Sorry. Anyhow.
It's
We're
too soon,
back.
man. It's too soon.
We had our
That was pretty
doubters.
brutal.
We had our doubters who didn't think we'd make it to the year 2025. In the pod.
Did those on the podcast, huh?
Yeah, we had a lot of them.
That didn't think we'd make it this far.
They said it's pretty good, but I don't see them getting to 2025
Like fans of the podcast that just didn't think that the Earth would last to
Not really
2025?
fan, not like
or
critics.
just
I
like
would
people
say-
that thought the podcast wouldn't last to
Keep
2025.
that. The latter.
Wow.
Yeah. And here we are to prove them wrong, as we always do. And we are back.
And
Greg.
we're watching newer movies these days.
Yeah, I kind of like it, and I'm really interested to see what you think about this one because I haven't even gotten like a thumbs up or down from you.
Right, we
talked
haven't-
zero sentences about
Yes.
this.
So to let the audience in, we didn't watch this movie together, and I haven't even seen Liam's face until just now, and
Yeah.
and he watched it after he saw me last.
I haven't even gotten like a vibe check
I know.
about this movie from you.
Well, this is let me paint you guys a picture. So Liam walked into the studio today, and he just said, "I'm really pessimistic," and I'm like, "Oh man, he didn't like the movie." And then he goes about the Vikings, and
Something was weighing on me.
then we had a much sadder talk about the Vikings' current state. in
The Vikings'
NFL.
current state is sadder than Ellen's state in Nosferatu, I would argue.
It's
At least
sadder.
equivalent.
It's sadder than Nathaniel Levinson's state on this show
Oh my
currently.
gosh. Yeah, he's not even
We
here.
don't even have. We need to get the picture of like going. I don't really know what's going on now.
I show up on time.
You
That's what I do. I show up on time.
you do.
This is a job.
I don't know. I mean, yeah. Today
don't
you
see-
definitely did.
I don't see how you can not show up on time and expect to keep your job.
I don't know. I don't know how Jakob plans to pay this man.
I forgot about Jakob.
I
Is he still
I've-
running the show here? Is he still
Is it
running
bad
the
that we've
show here?
forgotten about Jakob?
No, it's good. It means he hasn't really been in our lives a whole lot, which I would
Speak
say
his name,
is
though.
a good thing.
Speak his name,
Like Beetlejuice.
and he'll appear.
Or he's like, what's that old wives' tale? You stand in a mirror and you say something 3 times, and it appears. It's not Beetlejuice.
Is that Nosferatu?
Bloody Mary.
Mary.
Bloody Mary.
But isn't the term just screaming Bloody Mary? Is that not just that like actual physical Mary is going to show up?
Only once? It has to be 3 times.
Just so okay. So the clarifying question: screaming Bloody Mary
Yeah.
isn't that just a term for screaming really loudly?
Yes.
So it's just about screaming 3 times.
No.
You actually have to say the word Bloody
I think
Mary.
the phrase comes from the myth.
Oh,
You see what I'm saying?
See that seems wrong. That's like
Yeah.
that's like screaming Beetlejuice, and like, man, I'm gonna scream Beetlejuice, but now it just means yelling loudly.
Yeah.
That seems like we've really
I don't know.
diminished that.
Speaking of old wives' tales, Nosferatu.
Nosferatu,
Kind of in the same realm.
yes, Feratu, if you will.
Yeah. Did you like it?
Oh, we
Did you
haven't
like
even
it?
gotten.
Can we get into
hold
it?
on, the door is an opening. Looks like our other member is on his way.
Did you watch it with Nathaniel?
I did watch it with Nathaniel.
Oh boy.
Um,
I could see him not like it.
I think the big pivoting, like what's going to really determine whether out of the 3 of us somebody liked it or not is just if you can do horror movies. And I am pretty neutral on them,
Okay.
and I was kind of neutral on the movie. I thought it was a well done horror movie, which I'm
There he is.
not, incredibly, enthusiastic about horror movies. So we'll give a to.
been here the whole time.
Nathaniel has been here the whole time. He was under the table, and now he's
Now I'm awake.
he was just taking a
You
quick
look
little nap.
sleepy. You look like a sleepy
I'm really
boy.
tired.
Yeah.
Me and Nathaniel are on a diet this year, guys.
Is that right?
It is. I don't have a name.
Theoretically.
I don't have a name for it.
It's called the Don't Eat shit diet.
Yes.
It's pretty straightforward.
It is. It's honestly a pretty
That's literally
straightforward diet.
that's literally it.
It's
It's
just-
just don't eat junk food, don't eat out, don't eat sugary things. That's it.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's like not a hard diet.
Yeah. I mean,
Don't snack.
It has been harder than I thought over 2 days,
very-
though, to be honest.
Well, because it's like you're starting the diet, but all the crap that you bought before you went on the diet is
Yeah.
still in the house, and so you're like, man, I'm kind of hungry, and you look over and you see the bag of Cheetos, and you're like, shit.
You got to get it out of the house.
you're
That's
like,
my
I'm
biggest
gonna
thing.
eat cherries. That's what I was eating today, and I'm like, nah, it's not as
interesting.
good as chips.
I have the self control to not buy those things, but if they're in the house, I don't have the self control to
To not eat them. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So it's like I have no problem not buying them. Just don't buy them. Don't put them in the cart.
Right.
That's pretty straightforward. But if they're in the house, I'm like, well,
There is something about
wanna
wasting.
snack.
I would hate the
something,
waste.
too.
Yeah.
yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like, so this happened the other day before the diet. I went to Hungry Howie's, which is like my. I'm just feeling like a dumpster
their
today.
sauce is not good.
It's not great pizza, but you can pick your crust, which is kind of fun. It's cheap. It's
Their
close
crust is
by.
decent.
So I go there and I always get like this extra pepperoni pizza, and then I get it well done, right? Because I like it crispy. So I get there and they're like, "Okay, your pizza's done, but it was a little too well done, so we got another one in there for you." And I'm like, "Well, can I look at the other one that was too well done?" And they show it to me.
So you got a free pizza.
And this thing looked so good. It was like little charred around the edge, but it was like super crispy. And I'm like, can I just take both of them? And they're like, sure. And so then I had 2 pizzas. And of course, what do you like? So I ate pizza for like 2 days, but like I had to. Like I couldn't.
Yeah, you
I
can't
knew it
waste
was
it.
bad,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I can't just
Yeah.
throw this out.
I
It just
had
felt
like
wrong.
such an so I had a meeting at work, so they gave us lunch, and I don't remember signing up for this, but I had signed up for like a chicken Caesar wrap. It was bad, man. It was like, how do you mess that up? It's like lettuce, sauce, and chicken.
It is hard to do.
and it was bad. I'm like, how? How's this possible?
Healthy food sucks.
Welcome
man.
to the
No,
healthy
that's the
food
thing. A
train.
chicken Caesar wrap is
Healthy
good.
food sucks.
You can make a good chicken Caesar wrap, and it's really easy. So I'm like, how do you mess this up?
Oh,
It's like
man.
trivially easy to do.
Brutal.
So disappointing.
Speaking of things to
Dinner was
eat,
better. I
and
had my own homemade kimchi.
Think
of things to eat, go
Things
ahead.
to eat that
Segue.
That are probably not great. Blood, yes. We are
Yes.
talking about
Nice segue.
Nosferatu.
Whoa.
This is a remake of a. This is essentially a remake of a knockoff, because
Yeah.
the original Nosferatu was essentially just knocking off
Dracula.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know the name and then you watch the original Nosferatu, you'd be like, oh, this is like an old Dracula
I
film.
think it means Dracula and Romanian,
Romanji or whatever.
I believe. Someone could fact check me on
Is
that. I think
Nosferatu
means vampire.
Man, they're not even trying.
Well, I'm
they're,
beating
they're like,
Hello, my name is Vampire.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
like it's the same thing.
Yeah,
like, which
yeah.
I actually
Yeah.
didn't know it was the same thing until I like researched it a little bit and then obviously
Okay.
watched the movie. And it's like it's the same as just a vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
he's in Transylvania.
Yeah.
So they remade this movie. Came out on Christmas Day. The 3 of us went to watch it separately.
Not on Christmas Day.
Nathaniel and I watched it. Yeah, not on Christmas Day. Liam watched it separately. And I'll kind of give you guys just the rundown of what happens in this movie, and then we'll get to talking about it. So also character names. You guys just have to throw those out there because I'm bad
I
at
want to
character names.
say
you.
the
I got
main
you.
What's the
girl's
girl's
name was
Ellen.
Annie.
Ellen.
No,
Ellen.
wasn't it Annie the main girl?
No.
Who was Annie?
Ellen. Ellen.
Ellen. I don't remember them saying Ellen ever.
They said Ellen.
I swear it was Annie.
I swear
I swear it's Annie.
it was Ellen. I'm looking at it right
Wait, you're wrong.
Actually, I'm looking at it right now.
You looking
You're
at
wrong.
IMDb?
yeah, IMDb. Yeah.
Okay.
Was that not the Friedrich's wife?
The Friedrich's wife was Anna. Friedrich's wife was Anna.
Oh, Friedrich's
So there you
wife
go.
was Anna. Okay.
Okay, so we have Ellen and her husband Thomas. So Ellen is kind of like really quickly you get introduced, meaning like first scene of the movie, you get introduced to the fact that she's kind of in a little bit of a under a little bit of a spell. She's cursed, quote unquote. She's getting visions of this really creepy vampire guy, and she wakes up from it. So you're given the hint that she's not doing great. And her husband Thomas has this important job that takes him away. He's got to travel for it. He's a banker.
Real estate.
So he's got to get somebody to sign the lease over. It's kind of an odd situation. He's curious as to why he has to do it, but he knows it'll move him up in this firm, and they're really hurting for money. So he's like, hey, I'm going to go. It's going to be several weeks, but I think it's going to be worth it. She's real worried about him leaving because apparently she's kind of hinting at the idea. The movie's hinting at the idea that she's had these spells, these kind of like hallucinations. But once Thomas has been around, it's been much better. So Thomas leaves. He goes on this journey. He finds
Excuse me, it's Tomas.
It's Tomas. He finds himself. He stops by these gypsies for a night. It's really weird. There's a lot of kooky kind of hallucinations / dreams. Then he finally makes it to this castle where the Count Orloff is the guy who he's signing the deed. Orlok is the guy that he's signing the deed. That has to sign the deed.
Matthew.
Oh,
Matt.
wow. Matt
Sir,
Maxwell.
He knows I'm doing
You
it
know
right
we're
now.
doing
He's
it.
probably
We're not
watching
talking
it.
about Whiplash.
It's a crank
Get
call.
out of here.
It's a crank call.
Okay, so he meets Orlok, really creepy dude, unsettling. He starts to again put this guy under a trance almost immediately. He's seeing things. He's feeling ill.
And it's unclear how much time is passing.
Yeah, it's just kind of like this big blur. Like this part of the movie, until Orlok and Tomas get back, it's a very strange put together. So I'm giving you the cliff notes, but they're a little weird. It's a really weird time that he spends there, and Orlok eventually tries to kill him because he finds out that he is a vampire.
Well, so he has him sign this deed.
Yeah.
And this deed is in like this weird cryptographic writing. He's like, it's my original language. And so he's like, really, Tomas doesn't want to sign it, but he does. Like he signs it. And then eventually he ends up like trying to get out and he can't. The gates are closed. So he finds this little side door, ends up in a crypt. And he had seen the villagers like stabbing a dead body with an iron post.
Yeah.
So he finds like this pickaxe thing and is about to stab Dracula's body or Nosferatu's body. And Nosferatu like snaps up and he ends up like jumping out a window.
Yeah.
And you get to see like rotten Nosferatu dong, which I don't think I needed to see.
Yeah, there was a
You
little bit
do.
of Nosferatu
Yeah,
dong.
you do.
A little bit of rotten Nosferatu dong.
Yeah.
It's like you could put that in shadow.
So Tomas falls out a window. He floats in this river back home to Germany, and at this point, his wife has been just going nuts. I mean, she's been losing
he
her
gets
mind.
rescued out of the river by the nuns.
Yeah.
Oh, that is a good point. Okay, he does get rescued by the nuns. He had been bit by Dracula. You kind of think he's done for. They pray over him a whole bunch until he's able to make it home. He's still hurting, but he makes it home.
I thought he died when he fell out of the window. I genuinely thought that was the end of his story.
Nah.
Yeah.
Well, that's understandable for
Yeah.
you.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but
Yeah.
So he makes it back
missed
to
this.
Germany after the nuns nurse him back to health, to find that his wife had just been having like the worst time ever. She's having tons of hallucinations. She's manic, and they don't really know what's wrong with her. They consult the doctor. The doctor doesn't really know what to think about it other than sedating her. There's another guy. This is the guy that sent Tomas to Orlok. And you realize that he's kind of working for Nosferatu. He's a psycho. That he kind of gets taken in by the hospital, and they're like, dude, he's like eating animals. So this doctor's kind of flipping out, and he's like, let me go consult my higher up. Although he's a little weird, I think he might know what's going on. This is Willem Dafoe's character. He's a great character. He's kind of like this weird zany.
Well, he was like a highly respected psychiatrist, but then he started getting into occult stuff.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
They
so he
mentioned
got-
alchemy.
Yeah,
Alchemy.
alchemy and occult stuff, and he got kicked out because he started going down this non-traditional, like
Right.
weird stuff path. And of course, he immediately figures out what's going on.
Right.
But it's conceded that he is brilliant.
Yeah.
Like he is kooky, but he is brilliant.
Which is why the guy's like, okay,
Yeah.
we should talk to him, but
Yeah.
don't expect too much because he is crazy,
Yeah.
but he is brilliant.
And so his crazy is just perfect for the situation because he instantly knows. He's like, she's under a curse, and like this is what's going on. And so this is where the movie picks up because now Orlok has made it to Germany. He put his little coffin on a ship and killed everybody on board. The ship crashes. Now there's rats everywhere in the city. The city's kind of in a mess because not only are the rats running everywhere, biting people, infecting plague, but also Nosferatu's kind of eating some people. He approaches the girl and he's like, "Hey, listen, I want you." Like that's the whole kind of point of the movie is that he really wants Tomas's wife. And he's like, "But you have to give yourself up willingly." And kind of the conundrum of the movie is that he's like, "I'm just going to keep hurting people you love until you do this."
3 nights.
And Willem Dafoe
good
realizes this, and she realizes this, but everybody else is convinced that they can kind of get to him and beat him. And so at the very end, kind of, spoiler here, if you haven't seen the movie, you can not listen to this part for the next couple minutes here.
Cover your ears.
She does give
Her
herself
nipples
up.
are really, really shaped. Sorry.
She's like, okay, I'm just gonna actually do this. I'm gonna give myself over to him. I'm gonna denounce my husband and just say, hey, yeah, we're cool. We can lay together. Which pretty much means he wants to eat her. So like he's kind of banging her, but then he's biting her chest, sucking all the blood out of her too. And the whole idea is on the very
Unclear. Is he just sucking her
It's
blood?
unclear.
Do we even want to get that deep into it? I'm not
Unclear.
sure. I think he was.
I
might have
wonder
just been
how
sucking her
deep
blood.
into it he was.
She was making a face like he was.
We're gonna
getting
get
in
age,
there.
we're gonna get age restricted on YouTube
Yeah,
for that.
100%.
For comments like that.
We've said worse in this show. We watched whatever American Beauty. We can talk about this.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, she gives herself up, and she basically just seduces him essentially until the sun comes up, and then he's screwed because he can't make it back to his little coffin before then. They also went and burned the building this coffin was in and his coffin, which I was kind of thinking if they do that, even if she denies him, the sun comes up, he's going to have nowhere to go back to. But anyways, it's the end of the movie.
Unclear.
She dies. He's dead. He's really gross in the light. They give you a chance to
He,
finally see
shrivels up
him.
into nothing.
And he's just like this shriveled old man with maggots all over him, and he's just laying on top of this hot naked girl. It's a really weird moment. But anyways, it's really dark and gothic, but that's it. That's the movie.
That's the end.
I think
Roll
the key, like you touched on it, but the key is the first scene of the movie. Ellen was like depressive and like lonely and
melancholy
called out to like a higher spirit or guardian angel or whatever to like help her.
Yeah.
And it unlocks this supernatural realm that Orlok comes out of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's why it's not just
That's
like
why
a
the
random
connection is
girl
formed.
that Orlok's into. It's like that's why he's chasing her. He's obsessed with her because
she's depressed.
She opened
She
the door
called to him,
Okay.
and like there's an opening. Sorry, it was subtitles, so you might have missed it.
Yeah.
But like the very opening of the movie, when she's like running out of the house, he says like, will you swear yourself to me for all time?" And she says yes, and that's when.
So they're linked.
Yeah.
The first scene links them.
Yeah.
And then her getting married to Thomas kind of like numbs some of like the episodes she was going through, and like she's got true love, true happiness. But then when Thomas goes away, we see that when that's stripped, she's back into her episodes.
Well,
and that's why
it's-
Orlok is chasing
and it's her marriage to Thomas that makes Orlok be like, okay, I'm gonna go back for this girl.
Yeah, and I'm going to use Thomas to get back to this girl. Obviously, he didn't want to actually buy property in
One
Whisper.
thing I'm like, how did he get the other real estate guy, the crazy one? When did he get that guy?
He probably, my guess is that he just intimidated him. Like he at some point was like, "Hey, look, I'm super powerful. I'm going to eat you." And the guy's like, "Oh, I'll swear myself to you. Don't eat me." And then he just,
I guess that he was like, I'm gonna be the king of the rats.
I genuinely, this again might be a dumb thing, but I thought there was two different old men that were servants to him.
No, it's just one.
It was just the one.
It was just the one.
I swear he didn't look the same.
well,
he
at
goes
the very
crazy and he gets,
beginning,
like,
he's
all
like dressed
covered
like a
in blood and
normal
stuff.
person. Yeah, and
Maybe
then
that's
after
the
that,
difference.
he's naked.
But I thought it
covered
was
in
two
blood.
different people, but
You saw a lot of old man butt in this movie. I'm not.
Yeah,
the biggest fan.
it's probably too much
Not enough,
nakedness for
I'd say.
my
Okay,
liking.
now
not enough.
this is gonna sound like the weirdest and most frivolous male gazy complaint, but
Here we go.
who played Ellen?
Johnny Depp's daughter,
Yeah,
Lily Rose Depp.
Lily Rose Depp. Did her nipples look really weird to you? Like seriously, like they looked
I don't know.
they didn't look.
It looked like it was
nipple-shaped.
cold.
I guess, but
looked
they
like
were
it was
like
cold.
weirdly
It
shaped.
it probably was
okay.
cold.
It was on the big screen, and I'm like, that nipple doesn't look right.
I just thought it was.
And I'm
I
just
thought
like,
it was
what's-
chilly in there. That was the only.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe. But everyone else's breasts looked just normal.
I
And
thought
her nipples looked
I
weird. I was like-
legitimately
I was
thought
like,
that
what's
it was a
going on?
prosthetic chest, and she was like hiding under the bed, and she's like, "Ha, gotcha, you bit into the like."
Really?
I don't know. I thought they just like painted them
ruse.
on. I don't know. It was really
Well,
weird.
we did just watch.
I
We
agree.
did just watch Jason X, and there's like a robot character, and there's a scene where the robot character's in love with the guy who like programmed her, and so
She's an android.
yeah,
she's like a human.
She's
looking.
she's very human looking, but she's like an android, and it cuts to her like with her shirt off, and she's like, "Do you like them?" He's like, "I guess they're fine." And the nipples just fall off. 'Cause she's a robot. He's like, "You don't need nipples. Like, what do you need nipples for?" It's actually really funny.
No, Do we want to get into what we all thought
Well,
of it?
yeah. Let's go around. Let's hear from you first, Liam. I have a feeling you liked it.
I really liked it. I really
Okay.
enjoyed it.
Because we at the end of the movie, Greg and I looked at each other and said, "Liam probably really liked
Yeah,
the movie."
it was dark. It was dark, and it
Yeah.
was definitely not for everybody.
Yeah.
It would, but I tell you what, it was a great movie going to the theater experience. I was tense the whole time. I think if I was watching that like in my apartment or whatever, I might not have liked it as much. But being in the movie theater, watching that, like, it didn't feel like there was any lull to me. I was not bored for a single second. Truthfully, you guys might disagree, but I was not
Okay.
bored. I really enjoy Robert Eggers. This is probably shockingly the most straightforward movie he's
What else has
made.
he done?
He's made the Northman, which
the
we
Northman
watched. Dude, the
was
Northman
pretty
was
straightforward.
Crazy.
It was straightforward though.
Was it?
It was just a revenge flick. Like it was very like
You could boil it down to that, but man, there was chunks of the Northman that I was like, what in the world is going on?
yeah. That's I only saw it the once with you. There was probably some trippy parts.
There was no parts in Nosferatu that I was like,
I don't
okay, I've
understand what's
lost.
happening. Yeah.
Really.
No,
I thought
no.
the whole beginning was a little out there. And
That's
then,
because it had subtitles and you didn't understand what was
Yeah.
going on.
No,
Well,
I
maybe
was
that's a
I was
part of
definitely
it.
following the whole time.
Yeah.
Like I could understand what was going on for sure.
Yeah.
Where like Robert Eggers sometimes does like go off the reservation intentionally. Like The Lighthouse. Have you guys ever seen The Lighthouse?
Yeah, I couldn't even get through the lighthouse.
It's insane.
Yeah, I couldn't
It's
get through
actually
it.
like the whole movie is what in
That's
the world
also
is
Willem
going on.
Dafoe.
It is also
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe. Robert Eggers loves Willem Dafoe. But I think
not?
at the bare minimum, Robert Eggers always puts a very unique film out there. And so this one being little Eggers sauce on it and being straightforward,
Some eggs with that.
I thought that was a great combination. Because like a lot of times I watch his movies and I'm like, dang, cinematically it looks great. Like there's some shots that are like, wow, I've never seen that before, but I just don't know what's going on. This one I did, and the shots were still there. So I really enjoyed it.
I thought it was a really well-made movie. There were a couple of things I really loved about it. I thought the sound design was excellent. I thought the cinematography was really cool.
Yeah.
Like a lot of really interesting shots. The way it turned to black and white and got really like spooky and ethereal whenever Nosferatu was doing stuff. The way his shadow hand was like stretching out. I thought there was a lot of really, really cool shots. And I think if you are into this kind of movie, it's going to be a really
top- yeah,
high,
it's
like
gonna be
really
tops
good
for
movie.
you.
Yeah.
Not my kind of movie. I appreciate it for what it was. I enjoyed it as much as I can enjoy that kind of a movie. I won't ever watch it again. But I have very few complaints about the movie. Like I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I thought it was well acted. It was well put together. Not really my kind of movie.
I think it's a super fair take.
I think it's a really good, well-made movie. Like from a technical perspective, I think it's incredibly well made. It's just not my kind of
I
movie.
think you nailed it. If it was your kind of movie, you'd be like,
well,
this
it's
is
like,
one of the
it's
best
like people are
movies
saying
ever.
about Wicked. There was a guy, Chris Gore, who does a thing called Film Thread, and his analogy is like, well, if you like Thai food, you'll like Wicked. And his point is like, if that's your taste, you're gonna love it.
Yeah.
If it's not your taste, it probably won't change that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's this kind of movie. Like if you're not into horror or like dark gothic stuff, this probably won't get you into it. But if you're into that stuff, you're gonna really like this. It was really, really
like
well made.
peak gothic.
Yeah, it's peak gothic horror. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved it was Bill Skarsgård who played Nosferatu.
Skarsgård,
Like,
yeah.
man, he killed it. Like that, the
Unbelievable.
way he just had that slow, just in the.
he might be one of the elite
It was really good.
actors
It was
right
really
now.
good.
Dude,
He's
unrecognizable. I had to like double check
Yeah.
that he was doing Orlok.
I only
was
have like one or two complaints, and that has nothing to do with the way the movie is. But I'll get to those. But yeah, I think it's a very well made movie. Like if I was into gothic horror, I would score it very highly.
yeah, and that was his voice too. That was Bill Skarsgård doing the voice.
yeah, it took him like months and months to prep that.
Sometimes it was a little much, but then I was like, maybe that's what he's trying to do. He was like, I've tried to rough and rough, and I was like, all right, dude. Like, I don't think anybody rolls their R's.
When
that
he's
many times.
is he speaking Latin when he's or is it Italian? 'Cause
When it's subtitled?
Yeah. Well, like because he speaks a lot in a different language, but it doesn't sound like a Eastern European language. It sounds
It does sound like Latin.
sounds Italian, probably Latin.
Google it.
So I'm very similar to Nathaniel in the sense that it kind of sells it short to just say I'm not a huge fan of horror movies because I think I've watched a few where I've been like, wow, that was incredibly made. I think my typical problem with horror movies, and it's not that I have a problem. If you like them, you like them, like Nathaniel said. The reason I don't like them as much is because they typically, the point of the movie isn't necessarily to have a story that's really like intense and compelling and like characters that have really cool development. It's more like, hey, we're gonna tell a kind of simple story, and it's gonna be more about how we tell. Like it's gonna be more about the visual demonstration of the story. Like horror books, I'm imagining are completely different than horror movies because horror movies you have the element of visual and audible. Like a lot of this movie was, hey, what jump scares can we insert in this movie? They were great. They were really creepy. There was some times where you could kind of see him in the background and the person would turn and he turned back around and he was there, right? Like plenty of moments like that. And for me, I'm like, oh, that's a cool horror thing. But that just doesn't do a ton for me. And so for me, I'm more like, okay, what parts of the story are really going to grip me? You know, what character's motivation am I going to really resonate with and just be like, oh, I'm moved by? And there's just not a whole lot of that in horror. It was mainly like, hey, there's this big problem. How do we fix it? It's really scary. Oh, he killed somebody and it's over. And again, all of the things Nathanael said, like visually stunning. I mean, you felt like you were there in this place that I don't think exists. I don't know.
I mean, Transylvania is a real region,
right? But they had to create that whole feel was just amazing.
And this is what I've talked about
super
before
well done.
on like verisimilitude, like the idea that you feel like this is a real world. You feel like you're sucked into that, and that can work for fantasy and sci-fi, and it's all about it being consistent. And it was great.
Yeah.
It really sucks you into the location.
That element of the movie was done to a T. I mean, it was just awesome.
When he's in the gypsy camp, and he walks into the inn, and it's like smoky and
oh my gosh, I know. I thought the same thing.
That's they did a really good job lighting. The only thing, there was a couple of times where they were carrying lamps around, and I'm looking like, that is clearly an electric lamp. but you know what? It didn't bother me that much.
I think that I had no. I don't think I had any. Maybe a couple times it was so dark that I was like, if I wasn't watching this in a theater, I don't think I could see anything at this point. And I can see it now. Like you said, it's worth it to see it in a theater. We also saw it in Dolby.
Oh yeah, shaking our seats.
The seats shake.
Ooh.
And it was it was really weird though.
Yeah.
It shook like 5 times maybe throughout the movie at just kind of points that didn't really matter. It was like horses were walking by. It was like
when he's approaching the castle and you hear that slow clip clop, it was like clip clop clip clop. You're like, what the hell?
and then like several other times throughout the movie there was nothing. We're also getting a comment on his mustache saying that he's not sure why people don't like the mustache.
Isn't that like traditional for Romanian vampires or something?
That is, I actually read this specifically, that his silhouette and like his general shape was a ripoff, quote unquote, of the 1922 movie, but the mustache was unique to this version.
Yeah, so in the 1922, he's like this big, kind of Voldemort-looking guy.
Yeah. But the mustache and the fur coat were like Robert Eggers' specific Nosferatu.
I didn't have a problem with the
no, I didn't have any problem with it.
And the wiener too.
The dong.
His wiener.
I don't know if they showed a wiener in 1922, but yeah,
I can almost guarantee there was no over-sexualization in that first one. There was no...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you don't see his dong in the first one.
Like random naked gypsy girl on a horse, which why was she there? Like the stabbing the people makes sense. So what did they need the virgin for?
I don't know.
Did you see that one?
She was a virgin.
They were show like at the time it was like, oh, they have these weird customs, but I don't know how that related to the rest.
So they
of
were
the
aware
movie.
of the vampire, and that's why they're like, don't go to the castle. And this was them like, I guess. So there were a couple of scenes where it's unclear whether it actually happened or whether it was just a dream.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
That was one of them.
About like
because he wakes up with dirt on his boots.
Yeah,
I don't know how you could watch the beginning part of that movie and be like, yeah, this is all yeah. This is making sense to me right now.
But they don't like the beginning part of the movie isn't fully explained, but later it is.
Sure. And I'm like I fully agreed with the fact that once they got to Germany, I was like, now the story all makes sense. I know why he's here. He's here for her. Their whole visions thing makes sense. And maybe there were some dialogue portions that I didn't quite read quick enough, although I felt like I was reading it quick enough to understand it, and it was still a little weird. The gypsy thing was definitely like...
Yeah, that one was like out of left field.
It was a fever dream. From him leaving to him coming back was a fever dream. Like, Thomas's whole story was a complete fever dream. I didn't know what was real, what wasn't. He's meeting with Orlok. And then in the morning he wakes up, and then like the whole castle looks like it's covered in dust and cobwebs. Like it was never like alive like it was when he first got there. It seemed like there was a roaring fire and there were people around.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, was that all a vision? Did that all happen? But then the bite was there, and so it was all a mess and just really weird.
And it was really unclear how much time passed when he was at the castle.
Yeah, those were elements of the storytelling, in my opinion, could have aided a little. Like there could have been some aid there to be like, hey, we can make this because I agree with you, Liam, in that once it got back to Germany, which is maybe 30 to 45 minutes through the movie, I was very...
it was like halfway through the movie.
I was very attentive from that point on. The beginning part I did think was pretty boring. The beginning part I was like, all right, we get it. Like you're at his castle and it's really weird. And it's like the scene between him and Orlok signing the paper took like 12 minutes. And I'm like, all right, dude, like I get it. It's weird and you don't know. And he's appearing behind you and he's handing you a paper and he's creepy. But it went on and on and on. And I'm like, all right, that was the one time that I was like, this is getting kind of boring.
I mean, I think it was necessary to establish him and how feared he is. But Yeah, it was long.
Right.
It was a long establishment
Yeah.
period. So I understand that.
And overall, though, I thought that it was a more enjoyable watch than most of the other stuff we've watched. Like Nathaniel, it's not going to be a movie I go and grab for ever again.
If it's your thing, you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, and that's frankly just because I'm not super into horror. I'm like, oh, like the story isn't super compelling. It's fine. There weren't any holes in it. Like the characters weren't super compelling. They were fine. They acted on their own motivation. They didn't grip me. They didn't move me in any way. But I think the main thing that will grip and move you is how the movie looks and how the jump scares were applied, and maybe just some of like the disturbing imagery. I guess that's what you go for too in horror movies. That stuff doesn't like I could care less about people just biting off the heads of pigeons. That's just I'm like, all right, whatever.
You weren't moved by Ellen's performance, Lily Rose Depp, like her like episodes and stuff, all that shit that she had to act. She had to act like she was crazy, but she basically, I was like, holy gosh, like she's actually nuts.
Right. No, the acting I thought was really good. I thought Bill Skarsgård did a phenomenal job. Lily Rose did a great job.
Yeah, I thought she was great. I haven't seen her in much else, but I was like, dang.
I saw her
she's
on
really
Jeopardy. She looked like she wanted to die because she was so bored.
Really? She's got the Depp genes though, man. That's great acting in that genes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she was good. And like acting aside, I thought the acting was fine. I just don't think that they played characters that I like, in my opinion, did anything all that moving.
Yeah.
And this is what we've had this conversation several times, specifically you and I, where it's like, what is the peak of acting? Mm-hmm. And I think that it's moved away from, like, I think the peak of acting is that now. It's just act crazy, be screaming, and just act like a frantic person, and then in the middle of that episode change into like wanting to have sex with your husband and then move. And for me, I'm like, it's a little too wild and just out there. It's impressive and it's good. I find really, really peak acting to be like to be like Good Will Hunting.
I was literally just going to say Robin Williams.
Like Robin Williams and Matt Damon having that moment where he finally breaks down and cries. That to me is like, that's incredibly hard to act. It's incredibly hard to act like a real person in a serious moment.
Sure.
I think it's kind of like you don't really know where to draw the line when somebody's just acting ridiculous.
But obviously, this type of movie calls for that.
Oh no!
That's all you could do.
She did, yes, yeah. As far as
movie.
the performance that she had to make, she did a great job.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I don't necessarily like. I'm not in awe of acting performances like that, just in general.
What about our boy Willem? I thought he was just a home run. In this movie.
but he was more grounded than she was. I mean, you picked out the one character who's like having delusions and episodes the whole entire time, and it's like, well, she's literally acting like a crazy, like throwing herself on the ground and like tearing her clothes and screaming, like 90% of the movie just wailing and screaming, and then having to go to very sad and somber, and then being like overly happy to try to mask that.
Yeah.
So just all kinds of extreme emotions. And whereas Willem Dafoe, although he's zany, is a much more grounded character.
He brought a tinge of like humor to it all.
Yeah.
Like just a slight tinge that I really appreciated.
Yeah. So one of the problems I have with the characters in the movie is, and this is just a general thing that you see a lot. You see it in video games too a lot. Is it's much more compelling when characters are actively making decisions, and it can be in response to something, but a lot of times characters will just be kind of blown about by the plot,
right?
And they're just purely reactive. Like something happens, and so they have to do this. Something happens, so they have to do this. They're never actually like taking steps. And in that movie, most of the characters are just kind of flowing along with what's going on, right up until the end. And so, especially Lily Rose Depp is just kind of literally like floating along until right at the very end. She was like, "Okay, I'll bang Nosferatu and you'll die." And yeah, to me, I was like, especially Frederick was frustrating because it was like, even Willem Dafoe was really just doing a lot of exposition dumping, and they didn't actually. It wasn't until the very end where they're like, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go find his coffin and burn it." Even though it's like, "Yeah, that's not going to work." And it was funny. Like he finds the book and he's like, "Oh, well, here it is. Here's your problem right here. You got one of them vampire holes.
There's some holes.
You got
in
a
this house.
Well, that's your problem. You got a Nosferatu right there."
Oh, a lot of the movie was like Willem Dafoe trying to convince people that no, this is a real threat.
Right, but
like,
he wasn't doing anything. He was talking, and the other doctor was pretty much on board, and Friedrich was not. But they weren't. But none of it led to them really doing any actions.
Yeah.
Until Eggers was like, "I'll make this really poignant. I'm gonna kill these kids."
Yeah, and then Friedrich dies. And he kills himself.
Yeah.
Poor
Or
Frederick.
just dies of plague. I mean, it was unclear.
Oh
to
yeah,
me.
it was the plague. He had all that stuff
Yeah.
all over his face. Yeah.
So is Friedrich?
And it's like, and here's one of the things. It's like, if Lily Rose Depp or if Ellen had decided, the only way for us to kill us is for me to bang Nosferatu and die, then you should have done it before your nieces got killed and all these people in what were they? Brandenburg? No, where were they?
Whisburg?
No, Vicksburg.
Vicksburg.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that made sense.
Before they all
though.
died, maybe you should have been like, come to a decision a little sooner,
Spread
darling.
your legs.
And obviously, like, she didn't want to tell everybody that because they wouldn't have allowed her to do that. Like,
Yeah,
her
well-
husband was not going to be like, okay, yeah, sure, I agree with this plan of you dying and sacrificing
Right.
yourself.
Well, that's why Willem Dafoe's like, yeah, I'm gonna distract
Yeah.
Thomas.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what the whole plan to go burn the
Yep.
casket was, right? Why wouldn't that work?
Yeah, I'm not. It's unclear.
So he needs to be in soil.
Yeah,
Like,
that I was
soil
like
from
the
his-
coffin
from the
is
earth-
not
his earth.
dirt.
Well, it's filled with the dirt.
Okay.
That part makes sense, but it did make sense that I was like, well, if they destroy it, then
Or could you just like tip the coffin over?
He brought the dirt over,
Flip it over.
from like he
Right.
brought the dirt on the boat. Like that was like a big thing
Right.
that he had
Yeah.
to do was
Yeah.
to bring the. So he obviously needed it.
Yeah,
So, how do you get rid of it? If you get rid of it, is that it? Is that game over?
Yeah, well, it's unclear because they didn't end up going that route, and Willem Dafoe seemed to think that it wasn't.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, okay, well, why? You said you read in the book like that's why, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Chat's talking about the boat sequence. What do you guys think of the ship ride over?
It was good.
Yeah,
It was intense.
yeah. I did like. I wished that I felt like that was an opportunity for more. Like they could have had a really cool just. If you wanted to get all your gore and your horror out, it could have just been him laying waste to all these pirates. And really, you saw him kill the
I think they were
one,
just merchants, but
which
yeah.
was oh yeah, sure, okay, sorry, I just want to call them all pirates because they're on a boat. But all people on boats are pirates.
Yeah.
This is Disneyland.
Go to a cruise ship. Ahoy! Yarr! You landlubbers.
No,
Why
but
is our captain setting his beard on fire? Don't worry about it. It's Disney cruise, man.
I thought that one, the whole sequence would have, like, I was just kind of waiting for it. Maybe it's just because that was also the first part of the movie that I was like, I get what's going on now. He's trying to get over there to freaking Germany. And I was just kind of eager to see him. I don't know. I thought that first scene.
Unleash hell.
Yeah. And then he does, but then it crashes, and you're just kind of like, you just assume what happened. Like, he killed everybody. I'm like, maybe it would have been too long, but you could have edged down the whole beginning of that movie and made that boat ride really intense, in my opinion.
But the problem is there was already a boat ride vampire movie that came out earlier last year.
There was.
Yeah,
I don't
it was
even know
last
what
year,
the name of it
2023.
is.
Yeah.
Was
But
it
I
called
kept seeing-
Dracula?
I think something like that, but I kept seeing
I'm
trailers
gonna
for
look
it.
that up
No,
right now.
it wasn't.
It's
It was
literally-
like another like cult tale name or
Yeah,
something.
But that's what it was.
Not gonna lie,
Yes,
I
it
thought
was.
that was this movie.
Oh, that movie probably was so bad.
The CGI looked terrible in the trailer.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I didn't notice any CGI in this movie.
No, I thought it was really good.
It looked really good.
Could only imagine how long Bill
Even
Skarsgård.
the rats didn't look super CGI.
They were
I
real.
I was like,
Real
did they
rats.
get that many rats?
Real
That's
rats.
gross.
I saw a tweet that was like, the rats were real and the wolves were real. It was like Eggers really was just trying to kill Thomas, like in real life. Like he wanted him dead. He wanted Nicholas Holt dead.
Oh, okay. So, chat, thank you, Mario. I shouldn't be the one trying to read
Oh,
this.
buddy.
Mirror.
Mirror.
Mario.
Mirror?
Mirror.
Mirror.
Mirror dimension.
I mean, is
no,
that-
mirror domain.
Probably
Domains.
my girlfriend that he's
Pull it up.
mispronouncing. her
Mirror
name.
domains.
Probably my girlfriend.
It's not your girlfriend. It's a guy. Anyways,
Might be a girlfriend.
The whole name is Mirror Domains.
mirror domains. Okay.
Welcome. Welcome to the stream,
Anyways,
sir.
he's pointing out that
Or ma'am.
the other movie we're thinking about is the Last Voyage of the Demeter.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Demeter.
Yeah, Last Voyage of the Demeter. Yeah. That
So
was it.
his question was, is that supposed to be the boat in this one?
Let's see.
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
I
but
mean, that would have been an interesting.
It could be.
but it is. Why do movies do this? Because now I'm angry for another reason. Because I thought the trailer to that movie was just like the scene from this one, and that's maybe
I don't remember seeing any trailers for this movie. I remember hearing about it and be like, oh, they remade Nosferatu.
I clearly didn't either.
But I
I
don't
was a
remember seeing
trailer
any
for the
trailers
other
for it.
movie, and I thought it was for this one.
all right. So here's an interesting
All right, hit us with
point:
it.
is that movie? The credited writer is Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula in
Right.
1897, and that is also the inspiration behind Nosferatu.
Right.
So maybe
he also
there
wrote
is
Last
a
Voyage
tie.
of the Demeter.
Yes, Bram Stoker, Log of the Demeter, quote unquote Dracula. So maybe there is a scene in his 1897 book that is about the voyage.
That's the other one we should have watched.
Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Yeah.
I forgot it existed.
I literally thought
Actually,
that
let's
this
see
was
its
that movie.
Let's see its
so-
IMDb rating. 'Cause that's all I go off of.
I saw-
6.1. Oh, it was really bad.
That's not that bad.
6.1 on IMDb is really bad.
There are
That's
some
pretty low.
6.1s
Really bad.
that are solid.
Yeah, like Dumb and Dumber.
No. Wrong.
Dumb and
We're in
Dumber
Trump's
is-
America. You can't say that anymore.
Dumb and Dumber. Let's see.
He's so dumb.
Dumb and Dumber is
so dumb.
Dumb and
Might even
Dumber
say
is a
he's dumber.
7.3 on IMDb.
No shot, dude.
Oh
No
my
shot.
gosh.
It's not a 7 out of 10 movie. That's a 0.7 out of 10 movie.
Yeah, you're good. You're good. You're good. Okay, so this is a question for you, Nathanael, because we were more like-minded in this one. Like, why wouldn't this movie work for some people? Like, what are some reasons, like, why somebody could go and see this and be like, I didn't like it?
Well, I mean, I think if you don't like horror, and technically, I mean, okay, it's arguable whether the ending is good or bad, but really, like, it's this idea, and you know, I'm not a huge fan of movies, period, that have this kind of unstoppable evil force.
Right. We call that a slasher. I mean, this is
The thing about the slasher is it's very tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
Like the ultimately the evil horror is not meant to be stopped, and it gets pushed to the point of absurdity as we've seen with the Jason films. So I think when it's like more gritty, like, oh, there's just something like It Follows or something like that, where it's like there's literally no way to escape it. I'm like, okay, well then why show me the movie? They're all going to die anyways. Like,
Yeah.
If there is inevitability there, I find it much less compelling. Like if there's at least a chance that you could get away, like if there's a chance to win and you mess it up,
I think I had the same
that's
feeling.
different than, like, you know, I think about like Thanos. Like they could have beaten Thanos, but then Peter Quill, Star-Lord messes it up for everyone. Right. So it was difficult to win, but it was winnable. But they lose is different than they couldn't have won in the first place.
Right. And I got that feeling in this one because the interesting part of the movie, in my opinion, was them slowly figuring out what was going on, right?
Yeah.
Was Willem Dafoe's character sitting with him going, this is what we need to do. Oh, this is the next thing we need to do. And I'm like,
The thing
there's
is, he
something
doesn't
here.
come in until like the halfway point in the movie, and then he figures things out pretty quickly. He's like, oh yeah, it's Nosferatu.
Yeah, he figured it out like instantly, which I was fine with. They introduce him. They're like, listen, this guy is the best of the best, but he's a little weird. He's kind of gone off the edge a little bit. And you're like, oh, that's perfect, because you kind of need somebody like that for this situation.
Yeah.
Like, you obviously need somebody that is an expert, but that's not just looking for the scientific. Because you have, I forget the regular doctor there, his name, but then in Friedrich was the husband of the other woman, right? So you have the two of them being like, oh, there's very logical explanations for all this. I wonder what it could be. And they're kind of refusing to acknowledge the kind of supernatural elements that are happening all around the town, where you're like, okay, this guy's for sure going to acknowledge those things. And given that evidence, if you are that person, maybe you do find it out pretty quickly, right? Like, you can kind of put those pieces together. But for me, that was the interesting part of the movie, right? The interesting part was figuring it out a little bit and having somebody put the pieces together and be like, okay, what are we going to do about this? And how is it going to conclude? And to your point, I do find it a little less compelling when it's like, all right, we did all that. How is it going to conclude? Oh, the way that he said it from the beginning. He's just going to come and kill her on the third. Like,
It still happened.
And there wasn't enough of a twist put on that. And maybe that's why, like, I think, because again, you're right. Obviously, if you're a horror person, you're going to like it. If you're not going to like it. But I think that there's more to it than just that. I think the reason you might not like horror movies is because there's just, and yeah, like I mentioned, there's not enough emphasis put on the story of it, where I'm like, it was just
There
kind of
can be. So
yeah, I do think there can be. In this one, I don't think there was.
And horror is really interesting because I think something that horror can do that, you know, movies can really shy away from. Although, you know, I think there are movies that do this well that aren't horror movies, is really show evil in a lot of different forms, like human evil and supernatural evil. And but to make it, you know, again, verisimilitude of what we believe as Christians is,
Right.
if that evil is undefeatable, then it's not realistic.
Right.
It can be incredibly strong.
Right.
It can be something that you could never conquer
Right, on your own.
or even like humanity can't conquer. But ultimately, evil is not bigger than God.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons one of the problems and Constantine did this well, because Constantine, like, you know, uses holy water and cross symbols, and they're like, yeah, those work because God exists and is like fueling those things. Whereas I feel like a lot of supernatural evil, including supernatural, now that I think about it, they're like, oh, you have holy water and crosses and crucifixes and things, but they're just like things, and then they're like, okay, why do these things repel evil again? Can you remind me, like,
what was on the cross?
What is the significance of a cross that gives it power against demons?
Yeah. Why do they fear
would
that?
And they're just like, oh, they just do.
It's just the shape of it,
Yeah,
it's just like too angular, and they don't.
They're like, oh my gosh, all those right angles. Blah.
They think it's a plus sign. And
like, I can't do math.
No, I think, and the two of us talked about this briefly with our buddy Alan, who watched with us. He's been on the show before. And it was kind of ironic that the nuns praying over him healed him, and essentially solved the problem.
And then he's just like,
and then
okay,
they're
bye.
Like, all right, I'm going to go back to Germany. What do we do? Like, wait a minute, dude.
Hold on a second. You already found a cure, right?
You were bit by him. Essentially, you're getting eaten by him, and you're fine now because a bunch of nuns who believe in Jesus prayed over you and held crucifixes over you, which are a representation of Jesus. Okay, cool. What do we do now? Well, there was and so it's funny because I think that movies struggle to introduce an evil, well, at least in this fashion when you're dealing with whatever, vampires, werewolves, stuff like that, where they're like, oh, there's this ancient, good to fight it. It's like, well,
that's why,
ancient
honestly,
good?
Underworld did a better job of being like, well, it was this virus and then it somehow mutated and you got vampires and werewolves.
Right.
It's just some natural, it's purely naturalistic.
Exactly.
So the vampires and werewolves aren't like this embodiment of evil. Like you can argue like, well, they're drinking blood and murdering people, so maybe they are just evil, but whatever. You can
they're essentially like an introduced race into the normal world, whereas this one's very clearly like this guy,
supernatural
This
evil.
guy is a demon. We would call it a vampire, but essentially he's just a demon that has to drink people's blood, and he's infatuated with this young woman.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would agree with you in the sense that when a supernatural evil that is overpowered is introduced, it is often it misses something when there's not just an equal power there or some good that's better than that.
Yeah.
So, something in the movie that says other than just I don't know.
And it's
I
okay
just
if
didn't
like
find the ending
it's okay
as satisfying.
if the characters can't access that.
Right.
As long as you know that no, this exists.
Right.
But all the atheists die. Whoops. Unlucky.
Oh, whoopsie. So chat's saying
he says Mirror Domain said I think the dialogue could be a bit Shakespearean for some. And that's fair, although here's the thing, and this is more of that might just be a taste thing, but if you're watching a period piece, and this is set in this time, and they're like, oh shit, man, it's them damn Nosferatu, you'd be like, the hell? What is happening?
No, I will agree if one of them was like, man, this sucks.
Tomas is like,
all right.
Tomas is like, Ellen, I think you got a vampire. No cap. Like, this shit is not busting. Like, I gotta do something about this.
Yeah, I would say that the dialogue didn't bother me at any point. Again,
I think it fit. It was weird. They did do the thing where it's Germany and everyone just has British accents. So
That's
be like,
fine to me.
But it's fine.
It's fine just because I don't want to read. So I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is something like if you're searching for like a really compelling piece of dialogue or like an interaction between two people that you're like, oh man, when so and so said this and he responded with this, I just think that when you do take away that supernatural good element, that's going to be very hard to find. Because where is that going to be found? You think of movies that just have really amazing quotable moments or pieces of dialogue like Lord of the Rings, all these moments where Gandalf is talking to Frodo and just telling him, there's a reason for the suffering. Like good's not the only will that's moving here. That should give you comfort. All these things that are just you can just be like, oh, I could hear that and that could make my day different. Like those are the movies where like you wrote something really powerful, and it doesn't just have to be digging up Tolkien's writings and you're kind of cheating. Like I think that like early M. Night Shyamalan had a lot of really impressive dialogue for a lot of his movies. The Sixth Sense has a lot of really cool interactions between the two, between the little kid, forget the actor's name, and Bruce Willis. And then you also get awesome dialogue in The Village, right? It's one of my favorite lines where she's asking, Lucius Hunt, why are you so brave? And he's like, well, when others think about what could happen, I think about what needs to get done. And I'm like, man, that's like such a powerful like moment, and it plays the characters. So I think that you can have compelling writing in movies that that are relatively simple, or just The Village is it's not a horror movie, but it's creepy and suspense. So I just, it's just hard when you take away, when it's just like, oh, there's an ultimate evil, and so you can't really insert hopeful dialogue that's going to instill like, oh, we got this. Because there was none of that. Are there any lines for this movie that you really remember that struck you? That you're like, oh man, when so and so said that.
I will tell you the one thing that bothered me, and this had nothing to do with the acting, and it honestly didn't affect the plot too much. But it's like right at the end when Willem Dafoe has a one-on-one conversation with Ellen and says, "You are our salvation," and she's like, "I don't need redemption. I was just following my instincts." I was like, that doesn't make what you did right. Hello?
I have an instinct to slap people in the face.
My instinct was to bang the avatar of evil, and it was just an instinct.
That was after.
No, that's when they're like, we're gonna go burn the coffin, and Willem Dafoe.
He was like, "You're our salvation."
Says you're gonna have
to
walks
actually with her.
Yeah. He says you're the one who's gonna actually fix this problem. Like us burning the coffin is not actually gonna fix it. You got to fix it. And she makes this reference of like she knows she's the one who called the demon.
Yeah.
But she says, I don't need redemption for that. I was just following my feelings or my instincts or impulse. I don't remember exactly how she phrases it. Yeah. But she basically says, like, when she called the demon, she was just, I was just feeling so lonely, so I just followed my instincts.
It's kind of like
called this demon. And it's like, well, I was just feeling so lonely, so I banged these prostitutes. But so it wasn't a bad thing because I was just following my instincts. So I'm like, now hold on just a second.
It kind of leans towards the, like, your feelings are what's going to guide you. And, like, you can't deny that. And I'm like,
Yeah, I was really, but I don't think it was too heavy-handed with like the analogies and metaphors.
That was the only thing that I was really like.
You're
now
right.
hold on a second.
Right,
this is kind of all your fault. She was basically like, I'm innocent in all this. Like, except you kind of aren't.
No. You actually caused the entire thing.
Caused the entire thing.
Yeah, you caused the plague.
Yeah,
in Germany.
Yeah, you got your nieces killed and your entire extended family murdered by a vampire. So,
but yeah, I mean. I think what you were mentioning before about the like dialogue, no. But I think you got to understand that going into a Robert Eggers movie. Like he has a niche.
Well, going to any period piece.
He has a niche.
Right.
He's really good at it. Most people, like even myself, like there's going to be a plateau towards like a rating for a movie like this.
Yeah.
I think it's the best possible like gothic horror, maybe. But like for me, it's not going to breach like the dramas with like the really inspirational dialogue.
It's the greatest walnut date loaf I've ever had, as far as walnut date loaves go.
Yeah, like it knows its role. It doesn't try to go outside.
And you know what?
That.
I respect a movie that does that more than I respect a movie that's just trying to be the most broad slot possible.
Yeah.
So even though it's not for me, I can tell that it's well made. It's like I'm trying to think of a food I don't like.
Yeah,
it's just not many of those.
Not gonna happen.
But again, I think I really like that analogy that Chris Core had was like, if you like Thai food, you'll like this movie. So if it's in your taste, if it's in your wheelhouse, you'll really like it.
Yeah,
because it hits it for that kind of a movie, it's a very high bar.
Yeah. And that's why like my response to would you watch it again, I think would completely hinge on if I had a friend that I really thought would likes these kinds of movies. Would be the only thing that would push me to say, I think you'd really like this. Because if you like those kinds of movies, I'm fully on board with both of you, thinking that this is one that you'll go, oh my gosh, that was just so creepy. It was cool. Orlok is a horrifying monster throughout the whole movie. Like he is just every time he's there, you're worried that he's going to eat somebody's face. So no, it does a great job with that. Yeah. I think it like you said, it gives itself a ceiling, a plateau when it says, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. We could do it amazing, but you're not going to find super compelling dialogue in a movie like this.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a story that's really twisty and kind of surprises you and gives you hope at all. Which I think it kind of
at the end of the movie. I turned to Greg and Alan. I said, "So what was I supposed to get out of that?"
Did you watch it with Alan?
Yeah, we watched it with Alan.
Other than like horror.
Yeah.
Which you did a great job at. But I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of the movie other than being like, wow, that was a really well-made movie. I think that's okay.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's it.
I just think that movies have the ability to leave you with something. They have the ability to have dialogue that's moving and characters that you can just really
but those are the movies that you go rewatch.
Right, exactly. And that's my point. Is that this
I would rate this highly, but I wouldn't go rewatch.
But is there any horror that you would say does have that?
Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Strictly horror. Like thriller, I think you have those.
Right.
Like strictly horror, which
strictly
I would put
horror,
this in
I think
that
is a lot
category.
trickier because horror is completely designed to play on emotions.
It's just to make you feel
it's
scared.
to make you feel
Yeah.
scared and tense and those sorts of things. And that has, like you said, finite, like that has diminishing
It has
returns.
limits. Yeah.
So I don't know about rewatching. Like, arguably, the original Alien is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
very rewatchable just because it's so well done. But I think that's the exception rather than the rule for horror movies.
And I think maybe the reason that because I agree with you in that, and I'm trying to think of why. Like, why is it? Because this, you could say, it's very similar. There's just a thing that's
I
eating
think
everybody.
because it's a compelling story.
Yeah, and I think it's also because they in the liberty that they did have, they did a really good job being creative. Where this one, there's not necessarily a lot of creativity. You wouldn't look at this and go like, oh my gosh, how could they think of that?
Story,
like they
in
have
terms
the,
of the
when you think of
the
like
film, I think it,
well, yeah, but like the xenomorph, for instance, like they had to come up with like there's going to be an alien. This is going to be how it reproduces. This is going to be what its anatomy looks like. It's going to bleed acid. All these really cool things that weren't introduced at the time, and so they had to introduce all these elements of why everything is so scary. And you got to be really creative to come up with those ideas. Like you see it now, and you're like, oh yeah, it's the xenomorph. No, somebody had to make that before it was made. They had to make the little mouth that came out of the other mouth, and nobody said, "Hey, that's stupid. You shouldn't do that." No, they were all like, "I think this is going to work," and it did. Whereas
they
this
said,
one,
wait a minute, cover it in KY jelly. Okay, now that's terrifying.
and I guess there was less of that for me in this one. And again, I'm comparing that to I would consider Alien 1 to be maybe the best horror movie I've ever seen. I mean, just because
Definitely
it
up
would
there.
be in the horror genre. But I think there's so much more to offer. That was a really good point by you because I don't know if I could have thought of other. I'm sure there are some other horror movies that I've watched that are just. But
And
again,
there are
I
movies
think
that are.
well, I would put
That's more horror of the human condition.
I would put Old Boy 100%.
That's like depressing.
But I would
That's
put
not like
Old Boy 100% in the horror genre, though. You are
Yeah.
right there. Like it serves no purpose other than to make you feel
miserable.
and make you feel disturbed. Yeah. Which I'm like, oh, that's what horror movies do. So when I watched it, I was like, oh, maybe it's just like a really bad horror movie.
If you feel really
Would
disturbed
you-
at a horror movie, I think it did its job.
Sure.
And that's where that's where I'm like, okay, well, this is silly. You can make somebody feel scared and disturbed. And this would be a more interesting question: is would people that are really into horror think that the Alien is really amazing, or they'd
Probably
be like, or they would be like, oh, there's too many other elements there. It's not a
probably
pure.
not.
It's not like
horror
pure
movie.
horror. Yeah.
Right.
And again, I think it depends on why are you watching horror movies.
Right.
And well, in general, what are you watching a movie for? Because I think there are a lot of movies that have horror adjacent elements.
Sure.
Like, I mean, even the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man has some horror elements in it that
Yeah.
because he used to work on horror movies, he did like Evil Dead and things like that. So I think it's a broad genre, but I think in general, horror, the idea of horror is to stir negative emotions in you.
Yeah. And usually to have a, I could be stretching this here, but like usually to have, like the villain is the most powerful thing.
Yeah,
and
usually.
like even when it gets stopped, it's typically like, oh shoot, we kind of found this way to stop it. But it was after it did its tirade. There wasn't any redemption for it. It's just
Sure.
he killed 75 people, and then we kind of pulled the plug and he died. And
Yeah,
we're really
the hope
grateful
is
for
that the villain didn't kill as many people as it could have.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
typically the
It's-
end of a horror movie.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's not like, oh, we saved the day somehow. We clicked this button and like, how did we bring the people back? How did we end up saving all the people that were at risk? Like when it looked hopeless. No, a horror movie is going to be like, no, we're gonna fry a ton of people, and then it's just going to kind of eventually roll to a stop, and that's going to be the relief at the end. And then sometimes, and this is a big thing in horror movies, is that it'll reintroduce it right before the credits roll. It's like, oh, there's another alien egg that that opens up in one of the cells, and you're like, oh, it's a horror movie. Like it's supposed to end, like Alien Romulus, where they all get put back in the cryo chambers, and they're like, okay, they're going to bed.
Oh,
and
you
they-
mean Covenant?
Yeah, Covenant, where they realize that the machine they have with them, Fassbender, is actually
It's
bad
actually the other
machine.
Fassbender?
And so you're like, oh, he's about to just turn them all into like little cadavers and cut them open,
movie
and
was so
then the
dumb.
movie ends. And so you're like, okay, well that's a horror element added in there.
It was so stupid. Oh my goodness.
I thought that in The Invisible Man was a pretty
The Line was great.
the newer one that was made recently was pretty interesting. But again, it was a horror movie. Like the only elements that I'm thinking.
Like, what's the take?
Yeah, there's nothing. It's just
you married the wrong person.
Yeah, like she marries
whoops.
this guy who's like secretly working on a government project to like it's an invisible suit, and then he's like obsessive over her and keeps her there and beats her. Like it's really rough. And she finally gets away, and she doesn't really know what he's working on, but she knows it has something to do with that stuff. So that now there's this invisible man, because he put the suit on, following her around, like tormenting her.
The original Invisible Man by H.G. Wells is really interesting because it's just this guy who he was like some scientist or something, and he accidentally turns himself invisible, and then he's just a pissed off guy. Like he gets angry at everyone. He's like, well, you can't stop me, like you can't see me, so I'm just gonna I can hurt people, like
Skinner.
so don't get in my way.
His name is Skinner. Yeah, you know what we need to watch, because you guys haven't seen this, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because it takes all the who's the one that wrote Invisible Man?
H.G. Wells.
H.G. Wells. So isn't he the one that did all the kind of classic, the early
He did a lot of them. He did like Time Machine, War of the Worlds.
Well, did he?
You're thinking about Jules Verne.
Okay,
did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Captain Nemo, and stuff like that.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
That might have been, I don't know.
So maybe this is just old. Maybe it was just a collection of old
sci-fi and fantasy,
like old fantasy. Like, but the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is all those people coming together. So it's
yeah. I mean, it was what Darkverse was trying to be with the new Mummy.
It's like Dorian Gray. He doesn't. age,
Dorian Gray was
his
that super promiscuous guy. What was his name? Oh my gosh, he's famous for being a manho. Oh my gosh, what is his name? The guy who wrote Picture of Dorian Gray.
Oh, I don't know.
He got thrown in jail for maybe he got thrown in jail for being gay. I don't remember.
Oh my!
What are we talking about?
How long ago was this?
This was
Did I miss something?
Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde.
Oh, Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, Oscar Wilde, famous for his wild lifestyle.
Okay.
Hey-o.
So anyway,
I think he was in jail at first for some time for sodomy.
Woof.
I don't know what to
Rough
tell
one
you.
for that guy.
Probably a rough one for the other guy too.
Have you guys ever seen the movie Hereditary?
Heredititties? No.
Have you ever seen
I know what it's about. And I've watched a bunch of reviews. I see, like that's another one where I'm like, I don't.
That like
my
possession horror, I just like
gosh.
doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
I've never walked out of a movie theater so rattled than when I watched Hereditary. I will never forget the feeling walking out into the real world again.
You
Which
see-
it did its job. Like I was like, I'll never forget that feeling. I'll never forget. I remember every detail about watching that movie. It made me feel something so intensely, negatively, but it made me feel something so intensely that I'm like, isn't that the job?
There is something to that, and I don't know exactly what it is, but I like so when I first watched the first Lord of the Rings, I watched it in theaters and I was like 10. It was horrifying, right? Like 10-year-old, I was like, man, like I don't know, I might have been 9. I was like, I've seen the trailers. There's some creepy things going on here. They're like, oh, it's Tolkien, you know, whatever. You can close your eyes at certain parts. I was horrified. I mean, like the part where Bilbo like jumps out, like my soul left
Demon
my
Bilbo.
body,
Yeah.
and I just
100%.
I just fainted into the ground, and like I'm watching this whole movie and my heart is going, and I'm sweating. I'm like, this is just the worst. But I will tell you that it left an impression on me about that movie that I can resonate with now. That is so powerful. Like the Mines of Moria, Gandalf falling. I felt in that moment like, okay, this guy's the only one that knows what he's doing. All these other people are just dying left and right. Like so he falls, and I'm like, no, what do you? And then so that whole moment they put so much emphasis on that. It's a very sad moment in the movie, and I was completely there with all the characters, and I have a few movies that have had that impact on me at a younger age that mean a lot to me now. Signs is another one. Very scared by Signs, and it left a good impact on me. But there are so much more to those movies. Like, so I think that you can have those moments where you're like, that movie moved me or scared me in some way, and it left this impact. But again, you don't have to cap yourself at that. I think horror movies do. They're like, this is all we're going to do. I'm like,
I would argue that you do have to cap yourself in a horror movie. Like
well,
how
so then have horror elements in a suspense movie.
But that's not what Robert Eggers wants
but it's
to do.
not a horror movie.
Well, then he's doing a bad job.
He's doing a great job at his. He's got a lane.
Exactly
He's
what he wanted
staying
to
in
do.
it. How weird would it be if, like, in the middle of the movie, like Nicholas Holt's character Thomas starts going on this monologue about like we're greater than this, like brings everyone, unites everyone, like we're gonna beat all
Kill the
up.
beast!
It's like, well, that doesn't make sense in the context of the movie.
If you wrote a good reason why that was happening, I'd probably find that to be a more compelling
I just
ending.
think you're looking
So,
for not.
I
horror.
think one of the reasons
Probably.
we were talking about this
Probably.
when you stepped away. One of the reasons it feels like, at least for me, it feels like horror is capped is because a lot of times horror is like evil wins.
Yeah.
And that's really just not that satisfying.
Sure.
It's not a satisfying conclusion. And so I think that ultimately does cap it. I think good wins, and it's okay to have huge sacrifice, like the 5 endings of Lord of the Rings show that this was not just we won and everything's great.
Yeah.
It's like, no, Frodo has to go
Die,
across the sea. Like people had to sacrifice their lives. Like it was not free. It was costly. I think war movies a lot of times show us this, like we won but at a huge cost. Like Hacksaw Ridge, I think did a great job of that. So there's heavy loss, but at the end of the day, good wins, because if it doesn't, then why are we even bothering doing anything?
Right. And you pointed out that it's hard to reconcile with that as believers, because like I just also find that to be not true.
Yeah,
right. It's a removal from the
that's
truth
why I
that
think
evil is more powerful.
The Empire Strikes Back is a good, like evil wins a battle,
right?
But good wins the war, and that's why I think you can have a temporary victory of evil, and I think we do see that a lot.
Yeah,
but it's never an ultimate victory of evil, and I think horror movies always end with the ultimate victory of evil, and it's frustrating. It's annoying.
Yeah.
You're like, well, great.
Yeah, Hereditary ends, I think, with the little girl gets decapitated by a telephone pole, and then the demon takes over the younger brother. That's actually
Didn't Longlegs also do something like that?
Wonderful.
Yes. The last line in Longlegs was "Hail Satan." That's not a joke.
These are not serious movies, guys.
But you see, and this is another thing we talked about while you weren't in the room, is that what's the one time that we saw somebody get healed from Nosferatu and beat him?
Wait, say that again?
What's the one time in the
we saw
movie
something that could actually beat Nosferatu?
Something that beat Nosferatu, that healed a person that was hurt by him.
It's when he jumps out the window. He's in the river, and then the nuns play the curse off of him.
That's right.
And then he's like,
so literally the answer was Jesus.
I have to get back to Germany. And the nuns aren't like, well, maybe you should take us with you, or like go immediately to the church. And they just kind of abandoned that plot point.
They're literally like, hey, listen, there's this demon guy, and Jesus saves you from him. And they're like, okay, great, I'm going to go back to Germany and figure out how to do this. And we're like, wait a minute.
Well, then that doesn't seem like an abandoned plot point.
No, but
maybe
it
that was
definitely
like
feels
in the
like
book originally written.
But it definitely feels like something he should have like picked up on. Like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
maybe I should be praying.
Hold on. Hold the fort.
Yeah, this seems like an important piece of information that he just like completely waylays. And you would think that what's his butt, Willem Dafoe's character would have been like, oh yeah, you know how you beat a demon? Jesus.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I feel like you would have figured that out.
Yeah.
And like Willem Dafoe does have an interesting point of dialogue. Alan pointed this out, and I actually agreed with it. I remember, and maybe I'm going back on myself, saying there was an interesting piece of dialogue where Willem Dafoe was talking about how science, we've kind of blinded ourselves with science to think that we know everything. That there's no supernatural. That it's just everything can be.
I found what he was saying fascinating.
Yeah.
Because he sounds like it sounds like a caricature of, like he was saying, sounds like sometimes people who are very scientistic, like they're like, oh, science solves everything. Believe the science. Like there's this one commercial that keeps playing, and it's like, this is what science has done. I'm like, bitch, no. This is what scientists have done. Science is a methodology. You follow the methodology of science to do science, but people have to do it. It doesn't do anything on its own. It's just
like math has saved people.
Yeah.
No, the people that punch those numbers saved the people. They're real people.
My calculator solved this problem. Like, no, I put the numbers in, and my calculator told me the answer. It ran the calculation. It didn't do anything. It did even less than a calculator. But anyways, but people are like, oh, science solves all the problems. It's like, well, no. Now you've stepped over the line from science into philosophy.
Right.
And first of all, you're wrong, and scientists throughout the ages have not believed that. But they're like, oh, all the people who don't believe in science, they're just these religious kooks who are like, everything's like blind faith and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, that would be and that's basically what Friedrich is saying. And you're like, yeah, that's all well and good if you don't have a literal vampire demon thing like skulking around. It's like, you can't have both of these attitudes. Like, clearly there is supernatural stuff right in front of you guys. Hello, there's a demon. He's like, hail Satan. And you're like, science, though. You can't be here, man. Science. Like, hello?
What are you doing here?
What are you doing, dog?
Don't you get it?
I guess the devil is a natural thing. Huh?
There's
a
natural explanation for this demon.
I guess demons are natural things. No, it just does feel like to me, and this is my personal disposition towards horror movies, and I I'd like to think that there's an objective point I'm trying to make, that horror movies just cap themselves. That even if you like horror movies, there's a better version of that when you can bring those scary elements into a movie that also has compelling characters and a well-written story. Whereas I don't think that a horror movie allows itself, like a pure horror movie allows that. And therefore, I don't think the genre is. And again, this is why it's reflected as far as like how acclaimed horror movies, like they're typically not put into the category of like movies that are taken seriously. I think recently they've been a little more like to where we've thought about them a little more because people can do them in a compelling way. But I think that a good horror movie is just kind of like It. You guys see It, very cool, and that to me had more story, and the characters were each developing in really interesting ways, and again, great acting by all the kids, great acting by Skarsgård. That to me is a much more compelling watch.
They skipped that one part of the book that made everyone reach their eyebrows at Stephen King.
The what?
So it's split into two parts, right? There's when they're kids, and then there's when they're adults, right?
Right.
Well, at the end, when they're kids, they're all like 11, and they all have an orgy.
Oh, no way.
Yes, in the book. And people are like, Stephen?
So why don't you take
These
all
are-
that back, Greg?
Yeah, you
and
wanna just,
reel that one back in.
Wanna run that by me again? And so naturally, thankfully, they never adapted
Right
that part
after
into
I
film.
mentioned
They were like, yeah, we're not going to put this part in. Stephen?
Hey,
Are you okay?
You're a little strange.
And if
We
you
might
ever
need
look
to
at
put you
Stephen's
on a
Twitter,
list.
you'll know that he's not okay.
Yeah, put you on a list or something.
Definitely. You're like, what the hell?
Woof. Yeah.
So, all right.
Anyways, horror.
We'll get back.
So, and this is one of the reasons why, personally, I found horror video games more compelling and more scary than horror movies, is because you're controlling the character directly.
Yeah.
So it's like the stuff is happening to you by proxy.
Right.
Whereas in movies, I'm just like, well, that person's just being a moron.
I actually think that's a
Like,
great
don't
point
fucking do that.
because some of my favorite games are horror video games.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And yeah.
So for me personally, I find I connect much more with horror video games because, again, you're controlling actions, and so you're not being just reactive, unless you're playing Five Nights at Freddy's. But in horror movies, a lot of times people are just like purely reactive to spooky thing showed up, blah, and not being proactive. And when they're proactive, they're like, all right, gang, let's split up.
Is it the first horror movie we've reviewed on this podcast?
It might be the first pure horror movie, yeah.
Maybe it is. No, well, you would probably consider
Monkey Man. It was horrible.
You probably consider
It was horrible.
Heretic is a horror.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'd call that horror.
Yeah, I would
Heretic
agree.
is for sure in the horror.
I would call that horror,
genre.
but that's the psychological horror.
It's just
This
a
is
bad
like
movie.
supernatural horror. Yeah, like, it was just a bad movie. I keep people singing its praises. I'm like, the
No,
only
it's-
reason you're singing its praises is because
getting
you
some
don't
buzz.
actually have any philosophy.
It's
background.
getting
Like,
some
you don't
Oscar
actually-
buzz.
Oh God, that's
It's
Hugh
so
Grant
embarrassing.
is getting some
Well,
buzz.
okay. The
Hugh
thing
Grant
is, like,
was
the
good in
acting
it.
was good.
Yeah.
Again, the acting was good. The setup was good. Just the plot was just like the reveal was just like so underwhelming.
Yeah.
So lame. If you know anything about, not even if you're a Christian, if you just know anything about religion, period, you're like, well, that's a lame duck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do think, and I don't think we mentioned this on the episode. I talked about it later. I think that we actually had it wrong. I think the movie is with us in saying.
But you said that, but her conclusion is still also wrong.
Right, well, but that's my point. It still means for all of us to maybe even be more angry. But I'm saying I think that the people that are watching are in the realm of like, oh, that is what religion is. You know, like it's a great thing to just think. It's not real, but think about it. And you know
and
what?
those people are stupid.
Angry atheists that are saying that you know what you believe isn't real. You know, screw them. When it's like, okay, you're right, screw them, but you missed the other part.
Yeah.
It's not because this is all fake. She came to the wrong conclusion, whereas
Yeah.
I think that is kind of the world's conclusion right now, which
Yeah.
is, oh, we're not as angry as we were. Like we're not like the kind of raging like Reddit atheists
like,
anymore.
Oh, we still need.
Yeah,
the new
like-
atheism is dying, and now people are like, "Oh, religion is great, not for me."
Right.
But if other people have it, it makes them act well. Then that's great. Like,
Right.
no, it needs to be real to be meaningful.
Yeah, it was a terrible movie. Anyways, so we only watched one movie for the time here. Obviously, we were pretty busy with break and stuff. But did you guys get to any other movies in our break?
Watched a couple things. I watched the best Christmas pageant ever, which was great, very cute.
So that's the one I recommended, and I'm really glad it was good. I still
I
want
heard
to
it
watch
was
it.
good.
It was really good. It was very cute. It's based on a book. It was a very straightforward, fun movie.
Yeah.
There weren't really any twists and turns. Like, I mean, you know from the beginning that it's going to be the best Christmas pageant ever, that everything's going to work out. The kid acting was really solid for the most part.
Yeah.
And it's almost all child actors, so I was impressed that it was really solid. It's it's a little corny, but it's very heartfelt. It's very sweet. Great family watch.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. And me and my dad both walk into the theater. We're like, we should add that to our Christmas movie rotation, which we don't say very often. So
You ever watch The Holdovers?
No, I've heard really good things about that.
Did
I've heard
watch
really
The
good things about
Holdovers.
Excellent.
I didn't watch it this break. I mean,
I know I
watched
should
it
have because I was
before.
thinking
that. That's
about
the one where
adding to my
he's like,
Christmas
it's the
rotation.
people like staying over.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really excellent.
What about you, Liam? You watch anything?
I did watch something else, but I want to let you guys go first before because I'm gonna get into it.
So I this is usually a busy time for movie watching for me. So I watched The Town for the 40th
Bada
time,
bingo,
probably.
bada bingo.
That I rated it. I'm looking at my Letterboxd app, by the way. You have this?
It's
Dude,
Letterboxd.
you got me hooked on
Letterboxd.
it. You got me hooked on it.
It's good. Can I follow you after?
I sat there
I'm way
one
too
night.
lazy to do it.
I sat there one
I have
night,
it, but I'm too lazy.
and it's funny. I've tried to get back on the app and figure out what I was on, but I was on some version of it that was essentially like a dating app. You were swiping through movies. Yes, I was swiping through movies.
Wait, for movies though.
No, I was swiping
so
through
instead
movies,
of-
and on each movie, I could
Instead of
either
Letterboxd, you went to Letterfoot.
And there's people, there's
no.
chicks.
no.
Was Letterboxd spelled Tindr? D-E-R?
Oh, letterbox. I thought it was let her box. No,
Oh my
but when I was on it,
Come
it let
on.
you like swipe through movies, and on each one you could either rate it and say I've watched it, or set it to watch list, or just swipe it away.
It's Letterboxd.
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is I haven't been able to get like back to that version of it, like where I'm like, where do I get to where I can just swipe through?
Yeah.
Because I sat there. It was like I was in bed before I went to bed, and I just lost track of time, and I had rated 365 movies that I had seen.
I think that UI is just when you first start
Oh, they should get
within the
back
app.
onto it.
Because that's the only time I've remembered like seeing
That's
that.
so
I know
annoying,
you're
'cause
talking.
I want to
about.
get back because it also I passed a bunch of movies that I was like, oh, I should add that to my watch list.
Can I follow you?
No.
Nah, probably not. You can follow me. Anyways, you did get me hooked on that. But anyways, go ahead.
So
What
yeah,
other
that's how
movies?
it's good because that's how I track what I watch. So I watched Warrior,
Great movie.
UFC movie with Nick Nolte, Tom Hardy, and Joel Edgerton. Gosh, that is unbelievable. That is like, I bet you if I rewatch that again, it's gonna creep up and up and up and up and up. Because Nick Nolte. Do you remember any details about that movie?
Yeah. No, I think
Nick Nolte as like the drunk father who's like trying to
that's
win
the
favor.
most compelling part of the whole
Is
movie.
heartbreaking.
Yeah. It's really
Heartbreaking.
really sweet and yeah.
The other one of note is I actually watched a decent Netflix movie. Which
Okay.
those are hard to come by.
Lies.
Called Rebel Ridge.
Rebel
It's
Ridge.
pretty good.
I've
Pretty good.
seen that.
I'll recommend it.
advertised.
It has this guy who's like, gosh, he has the most beautiful eyes. I just want to get
What's the premise?
what? Oh yeah, I forget about the premise, but I remember this
just
guy.
about Nice.
He was just staring at this guy's eyes for 2 hours. I guess.
Dude, look at him.
That's what you're into. I don't like him. I guess that's what
He's
you're
a
into.
star in the making, by the way. His name's Aaron Pierre. It's about like he's a former Marine and like it's a small town corruption kind of like webs of
I
small
saw
town
something
corruption.
about that. I didn't watch it.
It's really good, really entertaining watch. Yeah, those are the highlights.
Nice. So I watched a few movies. I'll just recommend one. So I watched Boy Kills World. This is one that came out in theaters, and I was like, "Oh man, that looks cool. I want to go watch it." And then I didn't hear a whole lot of hype. This is like a 6 point something on IMDb, I believe. So hey, it was a 6 point something that was good. Had a good twist at the end. It had a very, very kick-ass feel. Felt like kick-ass. It's the one where he's deaf, he's mute, and he has a video game voice as a narrator, like in his head. Like that's how he speaks is with this video. Like
And
it's,
Skarsgård, right?
No,
Yeah,
it's H. John Benjamin.
it's John Benjamin, and
He's the best.
yeah, it was just really, it was cool. Ton of really cool action sequences, and the story actually had a fun little twist at the end. Kept you watching the whole time. It was funny. It was goofy. So I think all around, like, there's probably not a whole lot of people that would watch that and be like, that was stupid. Like, it was fun. Nothing extremely compelling, but good acting, really cool action stuff. And yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
Okay, you've been talking about that
So-
one for a while.
The two major things I watched was there's a family friend whose name is Pushpa. She's a doctor.
That's right.
I've known her for my whole life. She taught me chemistry because our family's homeschooled together. So I'm just scrolling through Google, and I see a trailer, Pushpa 2. I was like, a Pushpa movie? Hold on. Watch the trailer. I'm like, wait a minute. This movie looks dope. And of course, they keep saying Pushpa, Pushpa. So I sent it to her and her
It's
whole
a
family.
Bollywood movie.
Yeah, I think it's Tollywood.
What?
Okay, so
That's not real.
What?
I'm pretty sure it's Tollywood. I could
lying.
I could be wrong about this. So
What does that mean?
So that means it's Telugu.
It's science time with Nathanael Levinson. Teach me, doctor.
It's what?
Yeah.
Lie to me.
Yeah. So I'm right. So Bollywood is one. So India has
doctor.
a lot. India's a billion people. It's like China. There's a lot of languages. The main one is Hindi. The one you're familiar with is Hindi. But there's also Tamil and Telugu. And there's actually a huge Telugu population in Charlotte.
I was gonna say.
So they'll play Telugu movies in AMC theaters and as part of the
Telugu, I
AMC.
hardly know her.
Boo. But so Bollywood
That was terrible.
is generally Hindi movies, like movies in Hindi. Tollywood is movies in Telugu.
Oh.
So
okay.
they're both India, but they're different regions. I think it's north and south. I couldn't tell you geographically where they are, but they're different languages, base languages. And so
you watched the first one.
I watched the first one. It's on Amazon, and I was watching it. I didn't realize this. I was watching it in Hindi, and I was like, the lips are not syncing up with what I'm hearing, and that's because the Hindi version is dubbed, but they also have the Telugu version, which is the original version, and I'm reading the English subtitles. So I was like, I switched over to the Telugu version. It's 3 hours long. Doesn't feel like it's long. This movie is absurd. Okay, it's about this guy named Pushpa who ends up working his way up in this smuggling operation, and they're smuggling this like red cedarwood, like red sandalwood that's like really highly prized, but it's illegal to cut down the trees. And so it's about him evading the police by like he takes a milk tanker and like cuts it in half, and they put the wood in one half and then weld it back together and pour milk in. So they check and they're like, oh, it's just milk, and just all these different ways of him getting stuff across. And he's like working his way up and working his way up and working his way up, until eventually he's like on top of everything. And so the Pushpa 1 is called The Rise, and then Pushpa 2, which just came out like over Christmas, and I went yesterday in theaters. I was the only person there, but it broke records in India for how much money it was. And he's like, so he's not really like a good guy. He's kind of he's a smuggler.
He's Pushpa.
Right? Yeah, he's Pushpa. But his whole thing is like he worms his way into this criminal organization called the Syndicate, and at the end of the first movie, he establishes himself as the head of the Syndicate. And then Pushpa 2, and he falls in love with this girl, and they get married at the end. Which is so. Of course, the action scenes are ridiculous. The movie opens with him driving a truck with some red sandalwood in the back, and it gets stopped at a police thing, and the police walk over to the truck window, gets pulled through one window and thrown out the other window. That's the very first thing that happens in this movie. And she's like, now hold on a second. And so he just beats up all these cops and then bribes them. Because he's like, I'll pay you guys $10,000. And they're like, we're taking you to jail. He's like, did you think I meant 10,000 split among all of you? And then it's like them taking him to the police station, like him. It's hilarious. And the fight scenes are, as you might expect, completely absurd. Mm-hmm. People are getting like flipped upside down, then he'll kick them, and they'll just like slide on the top of their head away. There's one fight scene where he's like on a motorcycle and he suplexes someone with a motorcycle, by which he grabs them with the front wheel and then wheelies and like suplexes them with the motorcycle. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Why did these movies do that? Why do Bollywood movies?
I don't know, but it was so much fun to watch, and it was really weird because I was like, I didn't notice a lot of CGI.
Yeah.
So it looked like maybe it was like wire work or something, but it was really crazy. But anyways, there were like 5 or 6 music breaks where they just like break into song, and then the movie just keeps going. Yeah. The second one, he ends up being bound hand and foot because during the first movie he's bound by his hands, and then he still beats everyone up. And so there was a guy that remembers that and is like, better tie his feet up too. They tie his feet up, so he's bound, hands behind his back, legs are bound, and he just starts caterpillar crawling at people and like biting onto them and throwing them. Like it was hysterical. And then after he beats up a couple guys, he like lands on the ground and he's like staring down the whole crowd, and he starts like inching towards them, and they're like, he inches towards them. It was so much fun to watch. I'm dying in the theater. It was awesome. And then he just goes absolutely sicko mode, impales a guy on a trident, and then just like pulls the body down through the trident, just like holding the trident. And you're like, hot damn, this guy's not messing around. It was nutso.
They're fun. They're always like
It
4
was
hours
so
long.
much fun. Yeah, it was 3
feel like
hours
I
long.
would
It
die
did
in
not.
that movie, though.
I mean, I did have to take.
I'd have to
I took
read.
multiple bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
Like every time there was a music break, I was like, all right, I'm gonna go pee.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really fun. I would definitely recommend. I think it's streaming on Netflix. So I would highly recommend. Maybe you do it in 1 or 2 sessions, but they're really fun movies. They're really entertaining, and there was a really great moment at the end of the movie because his whole point is the reason he has a chip on his shoulder is because he was born out of wedlock, and he like you see as a kid, he's in school and they're like, "What's your surname?" And he's like, "Oh, this is my surname." But then his half brother walks in and is like, "He's not part of our family. He doesn't get a surname. His name's just Pushpa. He doesn't get a surname." And so there's this whole thing where the brother keeps showing up and being like, "You're going to marry this girl? Well, you can't use our last name. You're going to do this? Well, you can't use our last name. You'll never be anybody. Like, you're just a smuggler. You're a con man." Like, and then the person he ends up fighting to save at the end of the second movie is the half brother's daughter. And so at the very end of the movie, the half brother like makes up and they hug, and it's a really sweet moment of he invites him to the daughter's wedding and gives him the last name. It's like, I should have accepted you a long time ago, and I'm sorry, but let me make up for it. Like, I accept that you're my brother. And then as the credits are rolling, it's like going through the wedding and the credits are rolling on either side, and it goes to this funeral of the 2 guys he killed who had kidnapped the daughter. So he killed 2 guys, and it's like the oldest brother, the 2 guys he killed, they're at the funeral, and there's like a bunch of people showing up, including one of the guys who got from the last movie who didn't like Pushpa. And they're like, "Where's the other guy? We're waiting on him." And you see this flower bundle that has a skull in it. And then it cuts to the wedding, and there's a flower bundle with a skull in it. And then it cuts to a hill, and you see a guy pull a trigger, and there's just this huge explosion, and then it pops up, Pushpa 3, The Rampage. You're like, all right, well, I'm going to see Pushpa 3 when that one comes out. It was awesome.
Damn.
So that's what I watched. I watched a Telugu movie, and I would recommend watching an international film. If you want to get into it, I've heard RRR is very good.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet. I really want to, but I've heard it's very good. But Pushpa 1, watch it in Telugu. It's on Amazon Prime. The subtitling is not very good. So it's a little bit of broken English, but you'll understand exactly what's going on. It's not.
Greg,
It's
you
not
love that,
it
Greg.
is not a complicated.
All of this just sounds
There
like I would
were a
die.
couple things I had to look
a really
up.
long segment of reading. Just
It really isn't that bad. It really isn't that bad. But there are a couple things that I had to look up. So they keep using the terms lakh and crore, and those are just amounts of money. So a lakh is like 10,000, and a crore is like $1 billion. And so there were 1 or 2 things I did have to look up to understand exactly what was going on, but would highly recommend. And again, it's a really long movie, but it's a lot of fun. You will enjoy it.
All right,
for sure.
all right. So let's get to our ranking of Nosferatu here. Oh, I did watch The Quick and the Dead. If you guys haven't seen that, and I just want to say it because there was one line from that movie I told Nathanael about, where this guy walks in and he's like, "The Quick and the Dead is about like a duel, like a duel competition in the West, like shooting whatever." And
I bet you I'd hate it.
Pretty sure I've seen that movie. No, it's actually really good.
It's like really, it's
I don't
really
like
cool.
westerns. Really, just.
But
turned
anyways,
off.
guy walks up and I forget his last name. It's like Cortez or something. And they're like, he's like, "Cortez, sign me up." And he takes a big draw of his pipe, and they're like, "How do you spell that?" And he's just still smoking his pipe. He's like, "Correctly." And I'm like, that's all I want to. When people ask me how to
good. I've
spell
never heard
something,
that line
when people ask
before.
me how to
It's
spell something, I just want to be like, "Correctly." And like that's all I want to say. I'm like, that was so great. All right, so Nosferatu. Let me do our little thing where I go through the movies we've seen, and we can kind of like find an area for this movie. So we'll start at the bottom. This is my list, by the way, so it might be a little different for you guys. Okay, so would you watch this movie if you're forced to watch this movie ahead of Joker 2?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, of
Are you
course.
kidding me?
Yeah, well, I'm starting at the bottom. Relax.
Damn it,
I
Greg.
think you could jump. We all agreed that it was a movie that we enjoyed. So skip past all the doo-doo movies and go to the first good one, and that's where let's start there.
Get out of your ass.
Chat is also saying that Liam kind of looks like the Count, which is
I disagree
Who said that?
100%.
Who said that? Who said it?
his mustache isn't nice enough.
said it?
That's a problem.
Go to it.
I'm looking.
Brian Long.
That son of a bitch. He texted me the same thing a couple days ago. How did he find this?
All right, so would you watch
Unbelievable
this
what this
movie?
guy
Would
is.
you watch Nosferatu ahead of Trap?
Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, I'm in the same boat. Ahead of Monkey Man.
Yes.
Please like Goodwill Hunting, Redemption. and the brother.
We've done Good Will Hunting. We've never done Shawshank Redemption. That's
Who's
a
talking right
fantastic
now?
movie.
Is this still Brian Long?
No, this is Brendan Davis. Brothers Grimsby. I'm not familiar with that one.
Actually, Brothers Grimsby. What is that?
I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to look that one up.
Some
We
stupid
did
movie
Good Will
that-
Hunting. We have a
Oh, you guys
whole
have never
episode
met
on Good Will
Brennan.
Hunting.
You've
So-
never met Brennan, have you?
No.
He was my setter at Belmont Abbey.
Oh,
He loved the
Shawshank-
movie
Shawshank-
Brothers Grimsby.
Yeah, never heard of it.
No, it's horrible. It's the worst movie of all time. Great. It's a Sacha Baron Cohen vehicle.
Oh gosh.
And at one point, what's the scene you like, Brennan? Type it in the chat. You like when he
Shawshank?
crawls out of the elephant's ass, right? That's the scene you love.
Shawshank is a 10 out of 10, by the way.
Shawshank is amazing. Good Will Hunting, amazing. We actually have done Good Will Hunting if you want to go watch that episode. All right, so let's keep going up. Would you watch it over Monkey Man?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Okay. Would you watch
Oh,
it
that
over?
was. Let me pause. That was one thing when I was watching Pushpa. I was like, Monkey Man wishes it was this authentically
It sounded
Indian.
similar.
Because literally everywhere they go, they just like they sit down and people just start pouring cups of chai tea. Like
Yeah.
it was so Indian, which obviously was made in India. But I was like, Monkey Man, it didn't feel like it was in India. This I was like, I'm sitting in India right now watching this movie.
All right. Would you rather watch Nosferatu or We Live in Time?
Nosferatu.
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 Would you rather watch Nosferatu or Gladiator 2?
Nosferatu.
Probably Nosferatu.
Yes, Nosferatu. Would you rather watch Heretic or
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu? Would you rather watch Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or
Nosferatu. I'm telling
Again,
you.
we're still
I
at
might be
movies that I
getting
didn't
right to
like,
my
but I
line.
enjoyed. I could put Nosferatu on mute and watch
In
that
the
over
landscape
these
of
years.
2024 movies, this is going to be very high.
Yeah, I would put that over
Very
Kingdom of the
bad.
Planet. The Watchers or Nosferatu?
Nosferatu.
Reagan. We didn't watch that together.
That was
so,
great. I would watch Reagan first.
Yeah, I would watch
enjoyed
Reagan
that one.
first. Deadpool and Wolverine. We didn't watch that together. Twister,
That's
we didn't watch
that's
that together.
kind of the line for me.
Yeah, I think I
Deadpool,
think I
Wolverine
enjoyed
would be a line.
Deadpool Wolverine more.
Slingshot or Nosferatu.
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 Really?
Yep.
I didn't
Definitely.
like Slingshot that much.
I would put Slingshot above.
I have a
Nosferatu.
rating for Nosferatu. If we want to do ratings, and that rating is high. I know it's higher than probably every movie we watched 2024 was.
What about the Wild Robot or?
Oh,
I
Wild
would
Robot
watch
for me, for
Nosferatu.
sure.
I would
Robot
pick
for me,
Wild
for sure.
Robot over.
That makes sense. I would watch Nosferatu though.
What about A Place Beyond the Pines?
Place Beyond the
That's
Pines.
tough.
I
I
would take
think
A Place
probably A
Beyond
Place
the
Beyond the Pines.
Yeah, and then Gladiator 1.
Gladiator 1.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, again, this is my list, so it becomes very easy for me to see where I would watch it, where I would stop watching other movies. I think it falls right in like the 6.1 range for me, maybe
That
like
seems low.
Well, it's just again, this is my personal rank. It's not me like
No, I
like
know.
how
Yeah,
well.
so for me,
and,
I would,
again, horror movies, I feel like they cap themselves. Like a really good horror movie to me is probably like a 6.5. Like
Yeah.
so, I think this is right there.
I would give it a 7.5 asterisk, with the asterisk being like I have no reason to ever watch it again.
Okay. I agree with the cap. My cap for horror movies is I was thinking about this, probably 8. So I'm gonna give this a 7.9.
I respect that, and I respect the 7.5. I can see people rating this high. Again, it's my disposition
Yeah.
towards horror
Yeah,
movies to say
and I agree.
I think
What-
even really well made one
Yeah.
is gonna
What-
sit.
well, see
I
what-
might go a little over. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
give it like a 6.3.
Well, see, what really caught me and what I really enjoyed was I really liked the switches to black and white and I just feel like the atmosphere they did such an excellent job with.
Definitely.
I just take issue with the story and the plot, but in a horror movie, I think that matters a little bit less.
Sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
well, I give it a 6.3.
And I'm
7.9.
gonna have to subtract half a point for Lily Rose Depp's nipples being weird. 7.
There was a lot of
I
like.
swear that one of her nipples was misshapen at that time. My
well,
brain was just
I
like, what's
honestly,
wrong with
I
this
don't
nipple?
look at. I don't look at nipples.
I'm not
like
going to go
that.
back and
Nipples
check.
aside.
So.
I
Did you
respectfully,
guys-
I went like this.
Okay,
to the
Sure you
screen.
did, liar.
I did. I went like this to the screen. I said, I
Nipples aside, okay. Let me address one thing before we check off here. Okay, there are
Check off
obviously there's some points there's some points where you're like, okay, like the sexual like tension like that adds something to it. You know, is he eating her? Is he having sex with her? You don't really know,
Unclear.
but like she's kind of being pleasured. It's weird, and there were times where I'm like, that's kind of playing into the moment. there was one really weird time where she's kind of possessed, and then all of a sudden she gets down on her knees. We all know what it is, and she crawls over to her husband, and she's like, "I'll be a good girl. I'll be a good girl."
Yeah,
and then
I had no idea what was happening.
They just bang right there, right there. He's like, and I'm like, all right. I don't think that the whole daddy thing was probably that big in whatever this was supposed to be, the time era.
I'm just unsure what the.
It would have definitely said father.
All of us, father.
I've been to Nottingham.
He's like, call me father.
Call me father.
No, it's like all of a sudden the movie changed to that movie Baby Girl. You guys seen the trailer for that?
That movie's probably so
what are
bad.
the the odds that we watch Baby Girl?
0.
I'm gonna go with 0.
I don't remember seeing any trailers for this.
Nicole
it's-
Kidman.
She's like,
Oh, that's that weird one that's like 50 Shades of Grey but worse.
Yeah.
It's like Nicole
no, I didn't.
Kidman looks like she has a mask on top of her face. She has
she
so
looks
much plastic
so
surgery.
much like
looks
Botox,
horrible.
and she's like this big businesswoman, and this kid's like, yeah, you like to be dominated because you're really a powerful person, and she's like,
Yeah, I saw the trailer for that and I was like, this is literally just 50 Shades of Grey
he
again.
walks up, he's like, hey, bitch, and she's like, don't call me that, and he goes,
It is that
he sticks
vibe.
his tongue out, he's like, bitch, and he goes,
That's gotta be like parody.
Dude, it
like,
basically is
jokey.
that
It
vibe.
looked like
I
that.
squealed like the first time I saw the trailer, the very end of the trailer, it like gives all the whatever, and then just goes back to it, and he's like, "Good girl." And I like shrieked in the movie theater. I was like, ah! And I was like, what
This
is
is not a real movie.
This is terrible.
No, I do remember seeing the trailer for that and being like,
So bad.
have we not gotten over the 50 Shades of Grey thing?
Yeah,
Some people
But
haven't.
it was just
Apparently not.
it was a rough one.
I'm like, you guys, you know porn exists, right?
if you're really that horny, you
Like,
don't need to go to a
hello?
theater with a bunch of other weird
Just,
people.
I don't understand.
All right, so yes, but to my point, it's like Nosferatu turned into that movie for 2 seconds, and then it
I
went
didn't
right
get
there.
that. That scene
part took off some. I was like,
really
this is just
weird.
there's no connection. All the other sexual moments, you can argue, even though like those
They
are
were
my
necessary.
thing. Yeah, you could say that they're necessary. That one was like,
Well, even that was the only one that was sexual
Yeah.
because there's the first one with the naked lady on the horse. Who knows why she had to be naked, but that wasn't like sexual. It was just a naked woman
I
on a
guess
horse.
it just meant like the times that it's like
with
she's
not
like,
misshapen nipples.
she's
I will
like
point out.
scared of Nosferatu, but then she all of a sudden turns into where she's like panting,
And-
so you're kind of like, oh, is he
Sure.
is he
Yeah.
attacking her? Is he? That's what I meant. Like those points,
Sure.
you could say that there's some
Sure, but
mystery
they
there.
imply that they were banging.
yeah.
Yeah.
That part though was out
and
of
then the
place.
other nudity was when the wife of Friedrich gets eaten by rats.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You see a titty.
Yeah.
All right, so this is my
Which was
question to
not
you
sexy
guys.
at all, by the
what
way.
are our next 2 movies? We're kind of back on a normal schedule. We'll be meeting back in 2 weeks. What are the 2 movies we're gonna pick?
What's in theaters right now? I realize I just
Is
looked
it
at
like
this
one of
web.
our choices?
Again, I think we should do one in theaters and one that's streamable.
So we we move away from the 2 and
But I'm just saying, like,
I think we do
so how
one
do you
in
guys feel about
theaters.
doing Sonic the Hedgehog 3?
no. I'm gonna go ahead and veto that right now.
So you rather do Mufasa?
I'm gonna veto that as well.
Whose pick is it?
when is
I
our-
definitely own one of them. I, think.
I mean, we can watch Baby Girl.
I think.
no, thank you.
I think. Oh man, this is another horror one, but the Wolfman is the same director as the Invisible Man, which we love.
Well, love was a strong word. I thought it was
The Invisible Man?
I thought it was a good horror
Invisible Man was
movie.
phenomenal.
I didn't say love.
You
Love
literally
was a
said
strong
love. I have that on recording.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like there's much good in
No,
theaters
it's
right
pretty
now.
bad.
Homestead?
It's a dry time.
Yeah.
Brandon Long said, "Check out Eyes Wide Shut."
No, thank you.
Dude, he loves Eyes Wide Shut. That's
we
his
could
favorite
watch
movie.
the Lord of the Rings short or the Lord of the Rings
Rings
animated thing,
animated
which
movie?
I heard
Yes.
I heard it was really bad. I don't really actually want to see it.
What about this Homestead one?
It's not even a TBD. I don't want to pick a really shit one.
Homestead does look.
A nuclear bomb is detonated in L.A.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That looked
Could
pretty
be
interesting.
We could watch Craven the Hunter.
No.
Yeah,
Do you,
everything
do you
on
guys
here
want
is
to do? Do you guys want to do the Bob Dylan biopic? That's like all the buzz.
I don't know.
That's Timothy Chalamet might
Complete
win an
unknown?
Oscar for that one.
I have no interest in that.
Don't
I
have any interest in watching.
I don't care.
Timothy
I don't
Chalamet
care about.
again.
Okay, you guys want to watch
Seven.
culturally relevant
I don't
movies?
care about
Seven is
Bob
back in
Dylan.
theaters.
You guys don't want to watch culturally relevant movies? Oh, okay. You want to watch Wicked?
I mean, I would be okay with that. I like Wicked.
No,
I
absolutely
don't
not.
like musicals.
That's why I never suggested it because I know you guys
No,
are cretins.
Nathaniel, don't even suggest that, dude.
I didn't.
You know
because
I
you
don't
guys are
wanna watch
cretins.
that.
Do you guys
Red
want to
one?
watch Daniel Craig's Queer?
God, no, please.
Wait, why are you laughing?
I don't think I can
Wait,
handle that.
hold on. Why are you laughing at that, Liam?
What? Read me the synopsis of that. maybe.
No, it's just called Queer.
He's gay.
Is it a? It's a documentary about his life.
Lee in an expansion in Mexico City spend his day almost.
Dude, no, you're not
entirely
actually reading that. We're not
Absolutely not. It's Brokeback Mountain, but in New Mexico,
Brokeback, New Mexico,
which I watched. It was a terrible movie.
I mean, we could. What is the 28 years later coming out? That one looks
Nah, I don't
awesome.
think it's.
I'd have to watch the other 28. What's this Flow movie?
Wait. I got one for sure.
Okay.
Definitely have one.
Okay.
Yep.
This movie, Adrian Brody just won Golden Globes for Best Actor,
Oh,
and it
okay.
won Best Show. The
Okay.
Brutalist.
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely
We can
one.
do that one.
The
Yeah,
Brutalist.
for sure.
3 hours and 35 minutes.
Oh, that is brutal. They are right.
Hey, we want to be culturally relevant. We have to watch The Brutalist.
The Brutalist is presented with an intermission.
It is literally 15 minutes.
Woof.
Brutalist has got to be
I
one.
don't see any
I don't
showtimes.
know.
It's next week.
Oh, it comes out next week.
Yep.
That's hard. Liam, you can barely spare time for a movie.
I'm not
What do
seeing
you-
No,
any-
I'll watch that movie though.
I'm not seeing any showtimes, Liam.
It hasn't come out
next
yet.
week. It's the
It's-
16th.
I'm looking on the 13th of January.
16th.
Oh, the 16th. That's a while.
What about Challengers? You guys watch Challengers?
What's that one?
It's the one with Zendaya.
No, I've had enough Zendaya. Sorry. This
I've
Homestead one
picked
looks
my
interesting.
choice. I've picked the Brutalist.
That's my choice.
I wouldn't be.
Okay, so Nathaniel picks Homestead, and you
The
pick
Brutalist or Challengers?
what is Challengers?
Challengers is Zendaya movie. It came out
Yeah,
earlier
that doesn't
this
tell us
year.
anything about the movie.
It's about two tennis players
Oh,
that she pits against each
gosh.
other.
Nah.
Yeah, there's this. That's the one where she gets them to like
It
go
is the
make
she gets them
out
to make
and
out.
like.
It's a good movie though. From what I've heard.
I haven't watched it.
From what I've heard.
Sounds like a great movie.
From what I've heard, it's a good movie.
Somebody suggested Lego Movie.
The Lego movie, I'd be totally down. I love the Lego.
What about
movie.
Brothers Grimsby?
Brothers Grimsby?
All right,
Lego
so-
movie, 10 out of 10.
Do I get a
watched-
choice, or
I
do I
watched
not
that
get a
over
choice?
break.
No, okay,
So
you can
good.
choose the Brutalist.
Okay, I'll choose the Brutalist.
All
then.
right, so Liam chooses the Brutalist, and Nathaniel chooses Homestead.
That's the only other thing in theaters that looked interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I'm kinda
I'm
with
not
you.
married to it.
Or we could do. Since,
is also under 2 hours.
Since Brutalist is
We could just
A
do
trillion years long.
we could just do the one, and we could do one at home.
I like that.
How about we do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and the Brutalist?
That's fine with me.
Sure.
That cool?
Sure.
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
do it.
All right. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and the Brutalist. Yeah, so that'll be our new method, unless there are really two good ones, because I think most of the time it's gonna be like Good Girl and then or whatever that's called, and then so for most times it'll be one person picks a movie, and then between the other two we come up with one to watch home from home.
With something to balance out the shit.
Yes.
The good news about the Brutalist, I feel like it's
It has
very
an
good.
intervention.
I think it's gonna be very good.
It might be.
I think it is.
Well, what it? Okay, no, I guess I don't. The less I know, I feel like the better.
Yeah, I'm
sometimes.
gonna go into it blind.
I
I've been hearing
I
crazy
guess I
things
can't
about it.
complain about 3 hours. I did just watch a 3 hour and 10-minute movie yesterday. So.
Yes, and you love
And
it.
I loved it. It was great. But that one had a guy getting tied up and caterpillar fighting 20 dudes, which was amazing. So if this doesn't have Adrian Brody caterpillar fighting guys,
then,
think it's
then
not as good as Pushpa.
we're kind of not interested, right?
it's not as good as Pushpa.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Pushpa's a lot of reading.
For you, loser.
Okay.
Be less dyslexic, you
right.
loser.
Well, fellas, until next time, we will see you guys later.
Welcome to Your Domains, and we are a movie talk channel where we like to talk about everything about movies. We do movie reviews,